punchy little tune. I like it still.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Woo!
The Hangout with Adam and Ryan tonight. We have a special show for y'all, so thank you for joining us.
It's a big show. It's a big show tonight. I am excited about it.
We've been working for quite a bit of time, and we have a loaded show. We have an interview tonight that we're going to get into in just a little bit. So we're going to be interviewing Sam Ebersol. We'll get some details about Sam very soon here. We also have some more details on what's been going on in regards to the AI board game. We have done a lot. What have we been up to this week? Right?
Well, so Adam had a week off of work. And so he basically self-scheduled a sprint for the AI board game. And so a bunch of stuff that needed to be like half done or was, in the process of being figured out. We did a sprint this last week, worked on a ton of 3D printed stuff. Adam did a whole bunch of cool, awesome 3D printing. I did a bunch of graphic, design work and Midjourney work and AI work, and we get to show off all that cool stuff today.
And it's awesome because I think last show we were pretty janky as far as to where the board game is. We are nearly ready to give it out, so you can print it and do what you need to do with it.
We had a cool play test between the previous one and the one before that. Mike Azul came on, Adam went to his house. That's what happens when you participate in the chat. You get personalized playthroughs of our AI board game with Adam Pocious. That's what I guarantee.
So this is awesome because we want to start with talking about AI like we typically do. We're going to run into some different questions. We're probably going to go down that philosophical rabbit hole of where AI may take us in the future, and we'd love to have that conversation with Sam.
That's why Sam's here.
We'll get into a little bit more on the game summary. Let's get Sam up to speed on what we've been doing with the game.
Yeah.
We'll talk about some of the player cards that we've been working on. We discussed it last time as a necessity. Now we got that going. We're going to show Sam some cool AI at that point.
Yep.
And then we'll bid him farewell and move into the last part of our show where we're going to get into the game. You get to see all the cool pieces that are there.
Yeah.
We got some things that you didn't even know about. That we got some insights from the chat that we were able to go and move on. And then Ryan, what's the last part of the show? What's our end game here? We have something cool to show y'all.
Well, so we introduced the show as The Hangout with Adam and Ryan, and that is what we decided to sort of brand the show as, because so much of it has been the Adam and Ryan show, it's been the Double Drop Down show, and we just feel like it's a hangout with us. This is where we hang out with cool people and the cool chat, and we do interesting art and tech things. And so we branded it the Hangout with Adam and Ryan, and we did some cool new logos, all built in with AI.
We're getting the logo revealed tonight.
The logo reveal tonight at the end of the show.
One of the things that we were talking about right before we jumped in here, Ryan, was how AI has been something we were really excited about. And as we've been using it a lot more, I think we've realized that there's still a lot of human element to it. And I don't know if you've been feeling that, but I've been feeling it a lot lately. I've used it really excitingly, and then some things started to change up for me a little bit.
I would say that we definitely got to a point where I was freaked out that it was just going to take over everything, right? And then as I started using it more in everyday work that I was doing, I found it definitely more, and we found it with this game, right? We couldn't just have the board game built entirely by AI. The ChatGPT could not write us all the rules. It could not come up with an interesting game, concept for us. It was part AI, it was part image generation, it was part large language model, but it was also us, right? And so that's what I feel like is such a cool part of our show, is that we have this technology and art background, and we know these upcoming tools that we want to use, and this is what we'd be doing, in our normal lives anyway. We just get to share it with you.
We do it off camera, so why not do it on camera?
Why not?
Well, it's 8:10. We're going to bring in our special guest today. We have Sam Ebersol with us. So welcome, Sam, to the show today. Hello, how are you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Oh, we are doing well. So we wanted to give you a quick introduction.
Nice.
Sam has been part of our lives for quite a bit of time. I got to say, he was a professor to me when I had my undergrad at CSU Pueblo. I've learned a lot of it, and actually a reason that you even have a compilation of what you're seeing today as far as cameras and things is in part to this man here. And we wanted to make sure that we could bring him on for a couple of reasons. Recently there was an opinion piece that was put into our Pueblo Chieftain newspaper regarding regarding AI. There's some really good topics. We're going to jump into some questions about that. Sam is now a professor emeritus at CSU Pueblo, so still working with teaching, but has really been able to go and work on the things that he really enjoys in his life. And so we will put his website in there, Ebersol Media. He is running his own company, doing his projects. One of the latest projects he's been working on is more about the...
We'll tease it. Tease it.
Fair
Tease
enough.
it for the end. I want to tease
All right.
it.
There is a project we'll talk about, and it has to do with something
It's
you
fun.
can eat.
There's a project.
There's a project, of course.
So, Sam, we're going to jump into the show right off the bat. We want to start with that opinion piece because I think, in the spirit of what we've been talking about as far as AI is concerned, we've had our opinions, and I know you may not have watched some of our earlier shows. We tend to go down this philosophical rabbit hole. We start talking about, whoa, man, what happens when this happens? If AI goes too much further than we can keep up with it as humans. And reading through your article, you had some of those same kind of sentiments there. And so we wanted to kind of jump into that. And I know Ryan had a few initial questions that we were going to jump into it.
I mean, mostly you should talk about your opinion piece, what's in it, and if anything, what has changed, because it came out, a couple months ago, so 3 months ago. So we'll also put the link to it in the chat, in the Discord, in the show notes. But if you just want to talk about it a little bit, and then if any of your opinions have evolved since then.
Well, that's the danger of talking about new technology, especially technology that's moving as quickly as this is. 3 months is a lifetime. It's multiple generations.
It's true.
So I don't know that anything has changed dramatically enough from what I wrote about, but I do know that the curve that this technology is on is so steep. Adam, did we talk about diffusion of innovation theory when you were a student with me? I don't know if we did, but so that's really about the adoption of technology, and people adopt at different rates. So you guys are on the cutting edge, bleeding edge of technology adoption, and then you have the early majority, then the late majority, then the laggards. I have, surprisingly, perhaps to some of you, I've been a little bit towards that late majority laggard in some areas because I'm always a little skeptical about the promises of technology. So I'm a little bit of a cynical, I try not to fall for techno-utopianism, and
Sure.
I think there's a lot of that going around. But so what has changed since the article came out? I don't know that anything really significant or major, but I will say this. You can go on YouTube and just type in the dangers of AI or whatever search term you want to, and you can find a million opinions. But the scary thing to me is there's a lot of heavy hitters that are raising the flag saying, hold on, wait a second. What it started out with 1,500 AI experts who signed the initial document. It's up. Well, now anyone can sign it, and there's 30-some thousand of them. But I don't know how many of those people are qualified to have an opinion. But some of them, anyone can have an opinion, right?
That's true.
There's the thing. Anyway, yeah. So I'm interested in talking about technological determinism. I'm interested in talking about the ethical and moral questions around any new technology adoption. But I'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about.
I think that's a great start. And
Totally.
so as a quick summary of the article, you kind of go into just a broader spectrum of AI. And you talk about how it can have some major effects if it goes kind of unchecked, and how, even these experts that you talked about don't know what's going on behind the scenes. It's learning at a rate that they have no clue as to how it's happening. And so as we start to talk about that, I think that's a lot different than the kind of media or the technology that we started to talk about. And so I always use this story of how long it took to adopt things. And I remember that kind of lecture that we went through, and how the radio, for example, took a certain amount of years, and then it started to get lower and lower and lower. And whereas like ChatGPT, for instance, it was like within months became one of the biggest adopted kind of technologies here. But it's something different. It's not. It has a different mind of its own, so to speak. It's not like a human necessary all behind it, knowing all the different parts and pieces that make it get there.
Yeah, so some people have been talking about AI as comparing it to Oppenheimer and nuclear bombs, right?
Yeah.
So he created a weapon. and then he had some misgivings. And what did he say? I've become the destroyer of worlds. He realized he had created something that was, you can't put the genie back in the bottle at that point, or Pandora back in her box, or whatever analogy you want to use. But I think it misses the point on one level, and that is when you create nuclear weaponry, yeah, then it becomes an arms race, and but still, the president walks around with a briefcase that has the codes and the whatever in them. If he wanted to start a nuclear war, there is still some human control.
Right.
I see this more as gain of function research with a deadly virus, and you're developing something that could be useful to mankind. Maybe this deadly virus that you're doing gain of function research in is actually going to be the cure for cancer. But no, if it leaks, if it gets out, if it gets out of control, it's not just that it's now out there wreaking havoc, it's self-replicating, right?
Right.
So AI, I think the greatest fear is, here's something that we're creating. We don't know what the potential is for harm, but here's the thing. If we recognize too late, that the genie is out of the bottle, it's in a position not just to do harm, but to continue to enhance its ability to do harm to us.
You're absolutely right. And it's funny, we talked about at the beginning of this that like 3 months is a long time, right? In between, when stuff comes out, and like how long is it going? So I feel like within the last 3 months, like we've had a little bit of, there's been legislation trying to, do things. There's been, the European Union has passed some stuff that is trying to like curb some of that. And, it probably hasn't gone as far as it should, but do you feel like, I don't know, are we trying to get it under control? I feel like they didn't do anything about social media, right? Like we just sort of let Facebook do whatever it wanted to, but it feels like we have closed the gap a little bit on that, at least.
So social media is this huge experiment, and we're not going to know for years, if not decades, what price young people raised on social media are going to pay for that experience, right?
Right.
So, but I think there's enough people out there who have concerns, but it's still, there's no way to really control it at this point, I don't think. With AI, here's the problem. You have companies who have a private interest in maximizing the profit from this technology. But then you also have governments who don't want to curtail their own ability to manage and take advantage of this technology.
Or fall behind.
If China or the U.S. or the European Union decide, we've got to get this under control, and they put these really tough regulations in place, guess where all the development goes? It just goes to the places where
it is.
There's nothing that's going to localize this and say, if we can't do it here, we can't do it. No, they'll just simply take it to the third world country or developing world country or whatever, and it'll just, Silicon Valley will happen somewhere else.
Okay, you go ahead, because I could keep answering.
No,
you go.
I think you're hitting on this too, and I think too, one of the things, and maybe Ryan and I kind of are embodying this in a way, is that you're absolutely right. I think there's going to be people, they're going to move to wherever it's going to be available, and there's always ways to kind of get to it through different VPNs or other ways that you might be able to leverage that technology. I know it shut down in a few countries for a while for reasons, and people were able to get around it. So I kind of embody this spirit of, I acknowledge that I know certain bad things are going to happen. So if I don't stay on the side of like knowing how it's going to work and being able to engage with it, then it at least gives me a fighting chance to kind of be that other balanced side to that. And so it's like there's things that have happened in society where you may not agree with it, but if you don't get on board with it, then you're never going to be able to kind of, fight that. So I just wanted to put that out there, I think there's some spectrums out there where people do think like, yeah, this is a bad thing, but let's maybe see how we can leverage it.
So that's where I want to, you respond to that and then I'll go.
Well, I'm going to actually pose a question. So if you want to feed off of what he just said, go ahead, because I want to pose a question to you guys that will help us think about this idea of neutrality of technology.
Yeah, do that, and then we'll go back to it.
Okay, so let me ask you guys, I know this is a hot button issue, but how do you guys feel about gun control? So the kind of two sides are, guns are in the wrong hands are deadly, in the right hands are a good thing. a good what stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. That's kind of the gun rights argument, right?
Sure.
Right.
So what do you feel about that? Are guns morally neutral, or does it only depend on who's holding it, or is there something about a gun itself? In particular, let's narrow it down. An assault rifle, whatever that means.
Totally. I am pro gun control, if that's what you're asking. 100%. I think like you have to put limitations on all of that kind of stuff, because if you don't, you end up with a society that just has like them flooded in the market, and people, just the percentages of people having accidents or getting freaked out or using that just go so much higher. And countries have figured that out, right?
So Jacques Ellul said that a knife can be used to cook in the hands of a chef, can be used to cure in the hands of the doctor, can be used to kill in the hands of a murderer. So that argument, and he wasn't arguing that position. He was just saying that's what a morally neutral or the technology does not come with embedded values. The neutrality of technology, that's the argument for it.
Right.
But he argued actually that all technology comes with embedded values.
Right.
So I guess my question is this: the people who say AI, we just need to make sure that good people have access to it and keep it out of the hands of the people who want to use it for nefarious purposes. That would imply that it is neutral, and it's really just up to us to make sure that people use it properly.
I see where your head with that.
You see where I'm going?
Yeah, because there is an inherent danger that's outside of the like, it's not a inanimate object that sits on there and then grabbed by any of those kind of scenarios you mentioned, is that it could be just doing something in and of it itself. It'd be like a gun that has its own mind in a way. It could go around and make its own decisions based off of how it's programmed or however that might look.
Or even if we don't grant it sentience, what if we just say the way that AI operates is it has embedded values in it. In other words, it's not morally neutral.
Right.
And unless humans bring ethical and moral decisions to it, it's going to go off on this probably amoral, unethical direction.
I think you brought up a really good topic that we probably scratched the surface on but never got to that depth. And this is why we want you here, to be able to open that up. And I just wanted to acknowledge we have a few folks in chat that have been asking some questions. We had Mike Azul. We also have our Talon in the chat as well. But one of the things is they were, and I think you answered this question, is that it is dangerous if not everyone would participate in kind of looking and curtailing it and putting these specific kind of rules or moral guidelines within in an AI. And so, to your point, I don't think that's stoppable, right? Like, the way there's so many AIs out there and people that are building it, you may have somebody that is putting good moral pieces into one, and others that are just gonna be like, screw that, I'm gonna just create one that's as crazy and everything I want it to be.
Going back to the Oppenheimer thing, it's like, to create an atomic bomb or a nuclear bomb, you need so much, like, you need basically a nation's worth of, like, capital to put that together and to create nuclear states like that, but to have that kind of power, and to, like, you could do that with sort of a very powerful AI, right? And so you could have that level of power, but it could be so democratized that a millionaire could have that, right? Have that sort of level of power done to them. And then you're like, man, there are so many, millionaires out there that could just have that, that you end up being like, hey, we have to put legit rules onto that. Part of saying, oh, go ahead. And then I'm going to ask you a follow-up question.
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe your follow-up question might be better now. Go ahead. You go ahead with your question.
Well, so one of the things, because this is Adam and I always have these like rabbit hole discussions where we just go on forever. But like, so one thing that I wanted to do is bring up, your piece brings up a lot of the risks, right, of AI. Yep. Like if we don't have these safety precautions in place, if we don't have regulations in place, if we don't think about it in a moral safety thing. I also wanted to bring up, like, I was in that exact same boat, and I'm still mostly in that boat. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate almost here. But like, there was an AI person. He invests. He's a VC venture capitalist or whatever, and invested and very interested in AI called Mark Andreessen. And he wrote a blog post like maybe about a month ago about how AI is going to save the world, right, as opposed to kill the world. And some of his points, maybe a little like Pollyannish for me, but like one of them was that like we talk about it in like, so here's a quote that I will say that it fits in the article. Every child will have an AI tutor that is infinitely patient, infinitely compassionate, infinitely knowledgeable, and helpful. The AI tutor will be at the child's side every step of their development, helping them maximize their potential, all of that. And part of that is helped me be a little bit more like, I would say hopeful about it, maybe, right? Like, and just in the way of like, man, if each one of us has more of that person in there who has our back and who is helping us and doing that, do we as a society like sort of be better and not use as much of that technology to be doing like the harmful and terrible and immoral things that we're doing right now, that like it could help us.
That might be the scariest concept we're going to hear tonight. What you just
I love it. Okay, tell me about it.
So you know about this AI companion called Replica? Do you know about
yes,
that?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, just for viewers, Replica is like basically an AI like girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatever you want to do, and you'll be able to have chat, and it develops over time.
Yeah, and this was initially built by someone whose partner passed away, and she took all of his text messages and all of that. That's kind of where it started. And then she found out she could really relate to this computer recreation of her companion. Anyway, on their website, they call it the AI companion who cares, okay? Always here to listen and talk, always on your side. That scares the whatever out of me.
Tell me why, because I have a counter thing.
And what you just described equally scares it out of me. And here's why. To remove the humanity from an interpersonal relationship and install an artificial computer constructed replica of that, to use its own word, replica, to me feels like a disaster waiting to happen. And here's let me see if I can articulate why. I think every time we try to short circuit the human connection piece of what it means to be human, we end up the losers. And I'll use an example of pornography. I think pornography is an artificial replacement for what should be human intimacy. And I think it leaves us not only wanting more and not being able to fulfill it, but I think it destroys us. I think it eats us up from the inside out. So that's just one example of it, and there might be people who totally disagree with that. But I think an artificial attempt to replace human interaction with something that is more caring, more attentive, less biased,
Sure.
All of those things that are not as human as a human being are doomed to ultimate failure.
Would you say that a video game is a alternative to adventure?
Yes.
And so would you say that like a video game keeps people from having adventures in real life, whereas an AI would also keep you from having, relationships in real life?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it has to, but I think it certainly does. It's a substitute for.
And it would pull people potentially away from those if you have more meaningful things. And maybe we're at this weird point where AI does get to the point that it reaches some level of sentience. We're not getting to that point, but like there might be a point where we're having a debate if they're, if it's a real thing, like if it's a person. But I don't want to get to that level there.
Because you're talking about Her, right? Like you're talking about the movie Her, right? Which is like basically an AI, like sentient enough bot that can be a relationship for that. I'm like 90, or I'm I'm 70% of the way there with you, Sam. My only thing is
this is going to be a 3-hour session.
Yeah, exactly.
30 minutes. Thing.
I know we're like getting up there. My only thing is like America has a loneliness epidemic, right? Of people being lonely. And like you can say that like the perfect world, right, is you going out and getting those human interactions and like having all of those awesome like real life people in your life to do that. And like I'm also in agreement with that you should absolutely have that. But like if alongside of that, you could also have a Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder who is being like, here's the right sort of like moral direction and is there to talk with you and be like, sort of a little therapist and do that for you that people don't have right now.
Promise of social media was supposed to take us partway down.
That's true.
And it may be causing more insecurity and doubt and fear and self-harm and all
totally
and to get into
that's the capitalism side of it too, though.
Well, and as we think about that too, I always think about it, and Sam, I know you and I you invited me to a session, we talked about fake news, and I want to kind of take that because we're just inherently trusting that the AI is giving us the right kind of insights and things like that. And so
not this guy.
Yeah, I know I'm saying the same thing. I'm not thinking it is. And then and so maybe to transition the conversation, and this is again that philosophical rabbit hole we always get down, is that we have some opportunities to kind of think about this a little bit differently. So the fake news was my example, is that if it gets trained on the wrong kind of data and you get these hallucinations or these different kind of outputs to it, and then you start to trust that and you start to hear that often and often, and then like that becomes this other new alternate reality, and we're just living in these weird kind of pseudo worlds that are all super different based off of like our own likes and other things that other people are trying to push on us as well.
Okay, so fake news. So I don't know what your personal. I asked you already what you feel about gun control. Let's ask you about another hot button issue. How do you feel about global climate change?
Dude, I am anti-global climate change. I definitely want to do as much sort of renewable resources and all of that we can.
Okay, so I've heard a couple of people on YouTube say that AI is a much graver threat than global climate change. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Totally. It absolutely could be 100%. If it wipes out, all of humanity or whatever, and turns us all into paper clips. Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. so I'm going to give you a conspiracy theory that I just came up with today. Okay?
Nice.
So I went to one of these YouTube videos that the title of it is Dissecting the Extinction Threat of AI.
Okay.
And somewhere in this video, I think they make a comparison to global climate change, right? Guess what? YouTube slaps a context warning message on it, directing people to more information about global climate change. What if AI is controlling the content moderation for YouTube and saying, "Oh no, don't look over there. Don't look at me. Remember, climate change is the real problem you need to worry about. Don't focus on AI. We're the good guys."
I think you're hitting on where I was going with this, is that as it starts to think about those, it's like it's almost a self-protection mechanism, because you can see that things are changing. And one of the things that I had recently done is I'd worked with this gentleman that was I would like to say he's a genius, because the guy has almost like a photographic memory. He's done all this additional work in terms of stuff that I can't even mention. His PhD thesis, I can't even say the title. He has to dumb it down to me, but it's in terms of like physics and particle kind of splitting and things like that. But he also has a really good background and at least like a concept of how AI works and how it's like based off the training that you give it. So we talked about this a little earlier. It's not really sentient, and even the words or the letters AI aren't really indicative of what we're seeing right now. It's just really language learning models or image learning models. And so we're not at this point where it actually has any decision making. And one of the like things that I thought was interesting is like if you had a bunch of cats and you said, here's what cats look like, it would be able to go pick out those cats. But then you throw in like, here's a cat-shaped glass, or here's a cat-shaped pin, and now it doesn't know what that is, and so you then have to go train it again. Well, there could be things that are pins that look like cats, and that's where it's at. So we're talking about just layers and layers and layers of training, and at a certain point, we just don't know what the heck it's doing behind the scenes after that. And so we're in this pickle right now where if we get to a point where it has an ability to like make decisions, or we've trained it in such a way like a drone to like take out enemy combatants,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just going to
And
be like
you know that armies
Totally.
around the world are developing that technology.
100%.
You know that's happening.
Oh yeah. If not already, like developed.
Yeah.
So let me go here, because like as we start to get towards the end of this, our interview section of this, Sam, is like as an educator, and let's maybe bring it back to some reality within the next months to the next 6 months as we start to think about some of these things. I know that I did some initial discussions at our local university about saying, what is AI? What's the impact to just education? And in your article, you mentioned how one of your students may have put in an AI article kind of paper. I just love to hear kind of some of your insights on that. And before I jump into like your response, I just want to give you kind of a heads up, as I at first was like, holy crap, you can put in like a sentence and you get this paper out. And quickly I learned like, oh man, it's like not very well written. It's very like surfacey, and that it's more of an assistant and it can give you some ideas, but you still have to have a brain to get in there. But what's your thoughts on where this is going now and where you could see it in the future?
Yeah, as a longtime educator, right? I mean,
yes. So depending on the type of writing, I think some of the stuff I've done this with prompts into ChatGPT and come out with product that was 95% usable.
Totally.
And that's generally for marketing or promotional kinds of copy or things like that. Those are the people who have to worry about their jobs. That's why the SAG and the TV writers are on strike, because their writing is not original stuff. It's not very deep. It's not, complex. I mean, I hate to say it, but there's a million stories out there and they all get retold over and over.
Sure.
And ChatGPT or other AI is going to be able to do that.
They can copy the hero's journey, right?
Yeah. I mean, 90% of that is going to go, over to AI. Okay. So they have a lot to worry about. But in an academic setting, so this student paper that was turned into me, I knew the content very well. I knew the documentary that they were writing about very well. So it was very clear to me very quickly that this was generated by ChatGPT. And that's fine, because I had explained to them what the downside was, so we had that conversation and it was a learning experience for all of us. That's fine. And that was the first time I, as an educator, had encountered it, because this is all relatively new.
Yeah.
And I really haven't been teaching since I retired, except for that one class. Okay. So here's the thing in education. Every time a new educational technology comes along, and when I was a kid, it was film strips in the classroom, or films, actually 16 millimeter films on a projector, being projected. Whatever the technology. Educational TV came along, Sesame Street and all that, made some incredible inroads. But what did it also do? It created couch potatoes. It created an obesity problem with kids who just become screen viewers instead of actively engaging with stuff. Then the internet and computers came along. Word processing. I got through grad school having to type all of my papers, including my grad thesis, on a typewriter. Now, what happens when you compose on a typewriter versus composing in a word processor? It's a different mental process. You have to know what you're going to say. If you get to page 18 and you decide you don't like the way it's going on page 2, you have to go in and retype all of those, all 16 pages, if you want to make a change. So you have to think more carefully. You have to be more intentional. You have to be more organized. It's just a different thought process.
Sure.
So you might say, okay, well, that's not the world we live in anymore. We need to train kids for the world they live in, and this is the world they live in. Okay, great. But I still think that those tools are crutches that are weakening. So it's just like if you put an exoskeleton on somebody and they walk around that way for a couple of months, their muscles are going to atrophy. They're going to get weaker. So that's what we're doing. I think we're slapping this exoskeleton on top, and we're saying it's giving us, just aiding us in certain ways. And I think some of that's true, but it's also creating deficiencies in the way that we process information and articulate how we think about it and develop conceptual responses to whatever the problem is. So I have very mixed feelings.
Me too. Me too.
I think this is where we get, because it's like we
Totally.
just don't know where we're headed with things. And
Right.
and if I were to counter that as a debate, like, because I think about how much time it took you to type that effort, or how much time it may have taken to kind of conceive some art project in the past. And so you spent the time and the mental cycles to kind of get to a certain point. Are we just now on that other like upswing on a curve where we're saying now we don't have to worry about that processing, now we can do bigger and better things because we have
more things, right? Like you could do
But here's the
more.
thing. I think that time was an important component. The time is what allowed you to think more deeply about
Right.
it. And what are you doing with the time that you're not spending now? You're scrolling on TikTok or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's not like you're being more productive.
Sure. Well, like Adam and I couldn't do Adam and I couldn't do the show if I was typing out all my damn work on some freaking typewriter, right? I'd be home right now typing out that shit, as opposed to having this cool conversation with Sam Ebersol in this crazy studio. That's my only card. And I do think that there is a balance of that, right? Like you need to be able to spend deep thinking time doing things like that, right? That build
There's
towards
something
that.
to be said for efficiency, but you can't short circuit the
100%.
creative or the intellectual process that time requires to process things.
Like
I
our
will
brains
tell
need to be bored, right? And they need to have
Oh,
time to
yeah.
think about things, and they need to be, all of that, and a lot of that takes it away.
Bored is a huge problem.
Totally.
Huge problem.
Well, and I think you've hit on it. It's that we need that foundational bit, and so maybe part of the reason that even like Ryan and I is we grew up. I mean, I literally learned on a typewriter too, so
Totally.
I gotta throw that out there.
As a middle school,
Yeah.
I had a typewriter that I typed out things in middle school.
And
for
so
sure.
we've gone the mental journey, and so to your point, it's like we even with social media earlier, it's going to take decades to kind of figure out the effects. And so with AI, we don't know. I mean, how long is it going to take before we start to see that? We're maybe long gone by that point, but at some point we start realizing. And I always think of the original Time Machine movie, where it's like people forget that how to just do normal things, because I don't know if you remember that point with I think it was the Morlocks or whatnot, is that in the future everything was solved because technology fixed it, so everyone could just do whatever the heck they wanted to do. And in the chat they talk about Wall-E, hover chairs. And,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much pieces there. Well, we're at a part of the show, Sam, where we wanted to make sure we got to this. Is there any last words, last insights, or last kind of things that you'd want to bring that you might just say at this point in time in regard to how your thoughts on AI?
Either in education or in the multimedia and all of that kind of stuff that you're also into, which I feel like is a whole other side of AI that we haven't gotten into.
So part of my work is video, and so I use video editing tools that use artificial intelligence. I use a program called Descript for transcribing, but it also can take my voice and I can type in a sentence and it will construct the voiceover narration in my voice. So these are wonderful tools that simplify my life, and I'm not afraid to use them. But it's a very mild form of AI. It's not the existential threat AI that we're talking about for most of the program. But there are these little AI tools, and I find them very useful. So I don't want to turn my back on it. I think the big problem with the large language model AI that is potentially going to become more intelligent than we are as humans is that it's not a technology problem, it's an ethics problem. And you say, well, we just need to program the ethics into it. Well, whose ethics are going to get programmed
exactly
into it?
Right.
And I'm not sure that we would agree. And in the short term, I think the one thing that I'll end on this because this is a negative, this is a downer, but
that's all right.
Okay, we had the 2016 election, and for years people complained about it being influenced by Russian manipulation of social media. Then we had the 2020 election, and we continued to have debates about whether the election was legitimate or not because of COVID and all the things that changed in the election process. Now we're going to have an election in 2024, one of the most divided political environments that I think anyone can remember. And coming out of it that there is going to be huge. Half the population is going to be convinced that something, and probably AI is going to take some of the blame,
Sure.
is responsible for how we got this outcome. And I think it's going to be chaotic, and there's going to be huge emotional turmoil. And if AI really does want to take over and kill off humans, that's all they have to do is create an existential threat that is so great that we kill ourselves to try to survive. So
was Trump created by AI?
I think it's possible.
I mean,
to destroy America?
maybe this is actually what happened. AI was invented years ago, and that's a great way to kind of think about this. And so I think we still leave those questions of like where this is headed. And as we're gonna go through these weeks and months in the future, we're gonna reveal that, and hopefully we can kind of grasp some of this as we go forward, and we don't get distracted by the cool little things that help us in our daily lives.
I know, right? TikTok doesn't distract us from.
Well, I'm saying even the little mini AI versions that we have here. So, well, Sam, thank you.
And while we're being distracted, it just continues to collect data on us, because we just like pour all this content into social media and onto the web.
You're like, what distracts humans really well? Oh, now I know exactly what distracts them.
Talking about AI.
I need a board game. That's what I need.
Nice,
Heck yeah, you do. So Sam, thank you for the interview on that, and we appreciate the insights and where you're headed with that. I did want to
wait before we go. Do you have something? Do you want to talk about? I feel like we teased the project that you were going to talk about a little bit before I shut Adam up about it. And I think we need to talk about it a little bit.
We're going from an existential threat of technology to the most earthy thing I can think of, which is growing food, right?
Yes. It's a left turn, but I love it.
A project about Pueblo chilies, or the Moscow variation of Pueblo chilies, the thing that makes southern Colorado proud of its chili crop and all of that. So yes, we're working on that with Justin Breger and Gerbco Productions. We're going to launch that project here pretty quickly, and hopefully have a world premiere at either the State Fair next fall or the Chili Festival next fall. So
how could you not do the Chili Festival? I know,
it's got to be at the Chili Festival.
I mean,
right?
but State Fair has a lot of folks too. So I mean, that's awesome, Sam. I'm looking forward to seeing that, and maybe I can help you out with that, or Ryan and I can be in that.
Totally. Well, hey man, I'm like, I get 3 bushels of green chilies every year from the Green Chili Festival,
really?
and I cut them all up and I freeze them, and I have green chilies all year. So I'm into it.
3 bushels. That's
3 bushels.
Cool.
That's lasts me.
Chili. We love the chili. So thanks for that, Sam. Well, we're gonna jump right into the next part. So you're gonna hang out with us if that's cool, and then I know you're gonna.
I'll stick around.
Sweet. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into some of our discussion.
AI board game.
So one of the things, Sam, and I'm going to cut over to this screen so you can kind of see some of this, and let's take off these name keys. So, Sam, we've been working on a lot of things lately as far as this board game's concerned. So I think what we want to talk about is a little bit about what we've been doing. So I'm going to open Midjourney up in Discord and just give you a little bit of history of what has been happening. So we've been using ChatGPT. We've been using actually a bunch of other little mini AIs out there, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion. We have some
Dolly.
We were
using Dolly.
And so it's actually kind of a funny story, because I'm going to cut back to this for just a second, is that 5 minutes before one of these shows, Ryan and I were like, we should do something like a project.
Yeah, we need a project to work on. We need like a long-term project to work on. What could we do?
And we said, like, let's see what we could do and how quickly we can make an AI board game. So within, because what we do is we set the agenda earlier in the week, but we come up with like the finalized version right about an hour before the show, and we jump in and we talk about it. So we say, yeah, we're doing board game. We're going to go in. So we put it into ChatGPT and we said, hey, we acted as though we had no idea of what board games were. What are the types of board games? And we started to dive down this rabbit hole of the types, and we started picking, okay, we want to do a cooperative one. So let's do a cooperative. Then Ryan and I said, all right, what's a theme? And so, of course, Adam goes for this sci-fi horror theme, and then Ryan throws the left curve, and he's like, we got to do something crazy, and he's like, let's throw Christmas into it. So we said, what is a sci-fi Christmas horror board game? And we came up with this concept called The Snowman's Revenge. And the basic summary is Dr. Frost up at the North Pole has been doing some experiments on ancient Christmas magic and accidentally unleashes the Christmas magic and some.
This was all ChatGPT generated. We were basically like, here's the theme that we want to do. Come up with what is the overall summary of this board game topic, and that's what it came up with. With the Dr. Frost was in the Arctic in a research facility researching Christmas magic. Something went wrong, and the 4 people who were there, the group who was there, who was like,
were other doctors, they were almost celebrating. They're celebrating this amazing discovery in the research of Dr. Frost. They get stuck there, and now they need to escape. And so there's some puzzles, and there's some ways and hallways they need to get out of, and then they'll get into a Christmas sleigh to escape and stop the Christmas magic.
So that seemed ridiculous enough that we were into it. We were like, yeah, that seems weird enough that we can start building things off of that. And so what we did was we took that and we went, what kind of actual game would that be? Give us different type of games. And so it said we really like the cooperative board game, and so we like that. It had elements of fighting monsters, which it said it needed, and so we were like, okay, it's got to have monsters within it. And then part of the thing too was that part of the AI, we kept asking it, being like, define what the rules of this game would be. Like, how are people moving around? And it could not do that. It basically just sort of generically was giving us very boilerplate versions of what a board game would be. So in that sense, we sort of needed to come up with our own, we needed to use our own ingenuity and our thought of board games to do it.
Well, thank goodness you can claim a little bit of
tiny, at least a little bit, Sam.
So as we started to get into it, and honestly, we just talked about this earlier, is that we feel like we started heavy with AI, but it tipped the scales. Once you got into the depth of it, we found that we had to use a lot more of our insights, the ways that we're moving. And so what you're seeing here, this was the first time, January 26th, we chucked this into there, and we were like, write the board game cover art for a Christmas horror sci-fi theme. And it came up with some interesting things, very creepy folks with Christmassy kind of things through it. And I just, while we were talking, scrolled up a lot. We have so many different things. This was like a rendition
that was Dr. Frost?
Dr. Frost. And so it started coming up with enemies. And so we were just kind of spitballing because we had no strategy other than let's ask AI and then start to refine that strategy as we started getting down. I remember spending multiple episodes talking about what is the gameplay? What is the kind of things that we need to do? So I'm just going to scroll down.
What are the characters, right? Who are the enemies that we're going to do? And so we would ask ChatGPT, what are the enemies that would show up in this, in a horror sci-fi Christmas board game? And so it came up with zombie Christmas elves and, Aztec gingerbread men as part of the enemies. And so we asked Midjourney, hey, show us what an Aztec gingerbread man would look like. There was robotic Mrs. Claus, and I know so it came up with a whole bunch of different enemy types, and then we were like, hey, what does the actual board game look like? And so part of that is it seemed like it was very tile based. And so Adam and I both played, and we were both big fans of Labyrinth. And so Labyrinth is a game very tile-based. You're sliding tiles around. And so part of it that we came up with is okay, it's a tile-based cooperative game where you're trying to escape a research facility before Dr. Frost gets you, and you need to uncover tiles as you're going, and that's how you're moving throughout the game.
And as we went through, we thought, okay, we need little parts and pieces for the game, so we were trying to get all these ideas, and this is where it started with that really opened area. We started it's hard, what do we pick, what's the style, we wanted cohesiveness, and so we did have the design backgrounds to understand can't just do these all disparate kind of ideas and things, and we really needed to narrow into some of that. So what we were using it as more of this assistant to get it out, but we did want to use some actual AI art to get there. So what you're seeing as I scroll down, I know I'm going fast, is here's one of the first concepts that we had of a card. So what is a card that gets pulled out as a monster?
And it's all gibberish, right? Because Midjourney doesn't know how to add actual titles or actual content, but you're like, hey, that's a cool looking like D&D, you know, or card that we could have.
So I'm going to scroll down to like where we were at within the last couple weeks. So here was an example. I just wanted to get to this. Like as we further refined it, we've been using a 3D printer to print the pieces of the board.
But they're small.
But one of the things we were like, you can't get complex characters. So one of our folks in the chat, Michael Azul, who's been here, helped us understand this concept of what are called meeples. So if we're able to take the outline of a particular thing, we could just extrude that shape and 3D print it, and now we have a cool little game board. So we took that concept, and we've generally, every aspect of this game has ties into AI, but then we had to further refine it, take it into Photoshop, cut things out, start to actually take it to some areas. And so what I wanted to show you here, I had heard of meeples. One of the someone in this chat, I'd heard of meeples, but there was some real good like resurgence of what that's at. I'm gonna disappoint Talon, and I'm apologize for this, Talon, but we designed a lot of the pieces. Now I'm transitioning to this is a 3D like low barrier to entry modeling program called Tinkercad. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but you can get this for free online. And what we were able to do is take a lot of these initial shapes we did, and this is where we've landed. This is all the pieces and parts of the board game itself. What you'll have is, and they're all 3D at this point. They're 3D printable, so you'll see that they have some depth if you see to them. And all these pieces and parts came from all of the work that we just did with AI, and we spent the extra time to actually make them 3D. And so we're gonna do a quick thing with you right here to show you how we would take one of these 3D shapes. These are the 4 main characters of our storyline. These are the doctors and PhDs that are visiting Dr. Frost so that they can see his research. And so what we're hoping to do is just show you a little bit about the process that we've gone through to create some of the cards that we're at right now, and we're going to go from there.
Snooty board game elitism.
All right, here we go. So what Ryan's going to do is there's an AI that we want to talk about. And actually, Mike Azul, who's in the chat with us today, gave us this tip on a thing called Stable Doodle. So I'm not sure if you heard about this, Sam. Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a stable doodle of one of our design pieces and start to create some of the graphics for one of these characters. Because what we want to create is character cards. We have the nice like flat version. We had some ideas of what they might look like, but we wanted to kind of fill in the details.
I tried this a week or two ago, and it didn't work for me. So
okay,
I have better output than I do.
Nice. Well, and I am going to be drawing here with a mouse, which will probably be tough. So basically what we need 4 player cards, right? And the player cards are going to be the things that like somebody would choose. Oh, I'm going to be this player. I'm going to be this player, you know, like 4 of them. And then those player cards will sit in front of the person. It'll have a little bit about like who the player is, a little bit of explanation who they are, but then also it'll track like their hit points, right? If they're getting hit by monsters, it will help like track that on the actual card. They get action and event cards that they hold on to themselves as part of the game. And so those will sit on top of what the player card is. And then there's also coins that we have for like different augments that they can get. So, weapons that they can have or mods that they can have to like influence themselves all on one little card. So you can have that in front of you. And so we already knew what the outlines sort of look like of each one of these characters. And what's cool about Stable Doodle, or this is clipdrop.co, also owned by Stable Diffusion, right? Which Stability AI and all of that, this is all part of their whole ecosystem. And what it does is like you draw something out just by hand, and then you put in a prompt and you say, hey, follow along with the basic contours of what I drew here, and like add your AI image generation to this with this as part of the prompt. And so I did that for 3 of the 4 characters, and you can't import things into here. You can't import drawings. You literally have to draw with this little mouse, and I don't have a Wacom tablet anymore or anything like that, and so it was hard. I ended up like printing it out and sort of putting it up into the screen and drawing it. But anyway, we have one character that is very simple, and that character is a robot like assistant. I think I called him Steward. I think AI came up with Steward as his name, which was kind of interesting. So anyway, I don't know if we could put this on the screen just even real quick, just to show what he looks like. But I'm going to try to draw him freehand.
So this is the guy right here, this one in the middle.
So I did the two on the left and the one on the right. And then we still have Steward here, which is like the robot AI character. And I'm going to try to draw him, and then we'll figure out what exactly this prompt.
So we're
urban.
You know, we don't know. We wanted to make it completely whatever it is. It could be a turban, it could be a robot, it could be a big afro, it could be whatever it might. Maybe it's a big brain. Maybe it's one of. So there's Ryan with his skills on the mouse.
Oh man.
Oh, so we're drawing his head right there.
Yeah, because it's a portrait. It's like a headshot, basically, is what we need. Because that's what all the other ones were.
So we were saying he was robotic. So, Sam, do you have any insights? Would you say that he looks robotic? What would you say his most... Oh, God, you're going to put eyes on him. He's going to look like a...
There.
It has to have just a slit for a mouth. I don't know.
Okay, no, perfect.
Remember, I failed at using this before.
Is he... Wait. Is he happy or sad? Or he's just, like, neutral?
Very neutral.
Oh, he has like a smirk. I love that. It was by accident. Smirk by accident.
There we go.
Okay, so now we need... So I can't remember what I did. I think I did 3D rendering.
Oh, you put a hashtag rendering.
I did hashtag rendering. I'm so used to hashtag as opposed to a 3. Okay, 3D rendering of a character. Okay, and so we know... God. Typing on stream...
3D rendering.
3D rendering of, so like what kind of character? So we're saying like a robotic.
Let's just throw robotic in there, and I think it's jumping around on you. Oh yeah, robotic character.
Okay,
cool.
Do we want to add anything else? Like what? Portrait, like.
Yeah, Sam, do you have any prompt techniques that you go? Because I know prompting is almost like an art in of itself sometimes.
Yeah, no, I got nothing.
All right, fair enough.
Okay, so let's see.
Let's go with it.
3D rendering of a portrait. Maybe we should put portrait at the end. Robotic character portrait.
Cool. I think that sounds good.
Do you want like futuristic in there or anything? Do we care about any of that?
Let's do this as the first
we'll
dice roll and see what we get.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like part of it is just a dice roll.
You have to put in not a salamander because I'm getting salamander vibes.
Oh!
Whoa! Hey.
Okay, it's more like human-like than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But I like that where it like comes out at the edge here, right? Like it's trying to mimic that. Like it's thinking about it more as a helmet as opposed to a face, which is how I was thinking about it.
That looks great. Out of those 3, Sam, any ones that you like more than the other, or do we? Can you use those in any way to like? Oh, there we go.
I could download the HD version of it.
But can you use that and then make a modification to that if you wanted to?
I don't know.
You could if you used Midjourney. Because then you take that and then you go into like a different AI to leverage that.
Oh yeah, I had
this feels like a human though in armor, in gear, as opposed to a robot though.
Like maybe not human. Do we want to add that to the prompt?
Maybe.
Yeah, I like that idea. Like, cause we don't want an android, right? Like we want a straight up. I want Rosie, right? I feel like this looks sort of Rosie like.
All right, let's see what we get. I like how it keeps your original drawing, though.
Yeah, it's like, I don't got to draw that again.
Okay.
Oh,
man.
Man, I like that bottom left one. That one's looking good.
I do, too.
These ones are a little creepier. I feel like this one, oh, my God. With the eyes, like, halfway rolled up, that's a little...
That one's coolest.
This one's cool. I like this one. Let's
download
that one.
He looks young. Or
he looks...
or whatever.
Yeah. Did it let me?
Yeah, save that one for sure. So we're gonna get a a couple of them just to make sure. Yeah, save it to desktop. We're good.
Desktop.
We'll do one more dice roll on this one and see what we come up with, Sam. And I know
Okay.
we're close to your 9 o'clock time where you're gonna have
Let's
to
see.
a bit ado, but this is
anything else we want to add to this one? Like any
maybe just take robotic and take it to robot character.
Robot.
robot, and is there anything with the robot? Like, do we want it like a research robot or something?
Scientist.
Right? Like a science robot? Because I feel like that's kind of what we would be seeing in this kind of whimsical robot. But like all the other, so we'll show off some of the other characters when we get done with this. Scientific. Nope. Scientific robot. Typing on camera is the worst.
There we go.
Not human. Generate. Okay, and let's see.
I'm wondering what this is pretty quick
It's been doing good.
Okay.
Oh man, they're so weird.
It really goes with the theme. That one, it's like bottom left. Still
It's
seems.
it seems like so nervous, right? It's very C-3PO, like in that sense. Like it doesn't seem confident with itself at all.
No.
And they do seem very kid-like. Any
Except
one of
for
these
the
float in your
bottom
boat?
Right, which just looks creepy.
Yeah, that one's just creepy.
It's like a weird like halo on it or whatnot.
I don't even know what's going on there.
So this is the fun part of AI, because we're just trying to go into it and say what's the closest, and I think that's the challenge sometimes too, is that as you start getting in here, you're like, it's not what I have in my head, and it gives a version of this. But we're gonna have to pick one of these at this point.
I feel like I'm downloading both of these.
Okay.
Okay, because I want to show you. I want to show you what it came up with for the other ones. Oh, okay. No.
Just slap the keyboard.
Oh, it doesn't work.
Oh, because he clicked away from it.
So are you guys thinking that when you come up with these AI generated characters, that then you would present them to a human artist and say, now we need these to look, to have some similarities, or they all have the same look to them?
No, like for the most part, we're trying this as an experiment to see how much of this we could actually do with just AI and just us messing around with it for the most part.
Christmas robot is a good point. Well, and the other thing we
that's right.
failed to mention earlier, Sam, is that we don't want to monetize this. We want to create it and give it out for free.
So that's our whole thing. We're gonna have the 3D files available for anyone to download and 3D print and all of the AI generated stuff that we're going to do. Okay, so before you go, I want to show you some of the player cards that
So
we're
we're
doing.
in Illustrator at the moment. And so what we've been doing is usually taking some of these things out, and then we're doing a little treatment to them elsewhere. Oh, he gave a little bit of a
character panel. Okay, so we can look at not only some of the was it opening?
Yeah, it's just taking
it's just taking a second. It's just your slow ass computer on this thing. Okay, so I want to get into, so these are the player cards. I talked about a little bit of where you would have the weapons, and we sort of have this AI generated image in the background. And so here's what I came up with as one of the scientists. And what that was based on was this outline. Right? So I loved it because I sort of thought of that as hair coming out, but it had it as a big cool collar to her research jacket. And I was like, that's pretty badass. and I just was like, hey, ChatGPT, what could be names of characters in a horror sci-fi Christmas board game who is a scientist lady? And one of them was...
This is an evil character?
She's part of she's part of the whole scientific outfit that is happening here with Dr. Frost. So, I mean, in some ways, yeah, I feel like she's trying to save her own butt typically, but evil. Okay. Oh, come on. Here we go.
Sophia.
And then I had Sophia.
Oh.
And that was based on this outline. Right? Because I feel like this was sort of a bow or something, like, and this kind of big dress that she was in. I feel like she's dressed up for a Christmas party, right? I also, we were getting a lot of white characters from this, and I was kind of like, hey, we got to have some diversity in this. We also have like shotguns and things like that they get as weapons, and the idea of like a 10-year-old like having this shotgun and going through and killing monsters just seemed fun to me.
And then we got our other character, Jacob.
It's zooming into whatever you have selected.
And then their final character. So you just helped us somewhat get our robot character in there. So that's what's cool about it. So
yeah,
here's Jacob.
So this was like the normal guy. I feel like this is the Philip J. Fry. This is the, helper person at the research facility that just kind of like helps shovel snow and do things, right? And so I love how it like mimicked a little bit of the spiky, messy hair at the top. Also, not for nothing, but I was like, hey, that kind of looks like a version of me when I was, when I was 2023.
Established a time, a period, an era.
We haven't. I didn't think about that. Like, it has been very.
There's several that looks very futuristic, but that character doesn't. He looks very
like old, like yeah. I get that. You're right, because. Oh, thank you, Mike Ozul. I appreciate that. So not only do the only thing, really one of the only things that we have as being like futuristic looking is the robot part of it. So if we wanted to change that, we could be like a period piece, right?
That is true. And like, that's a great point to like throw out there, is we just went with it. I would say it's probably like almost even alternate universe version, just probably a decade or so from now in that. And so as you can see how much additional work, this is the human side of us. Like, we use backdrops of characters, we use the designs of ChatGPT, but we still needed to go in and start building all those parts and pieces. We have a little bag right here that you could kind of see of all of our like parts that we started. And so we've play tested this game. This was just a little piece of wood that has little like parts on it that we can kind of navigate around. We have like little characters we 3D printed out, and actually behind us as we've been going, we have been 3D printing. And so this is a sleigh that's 3D printing for us right now.
That's how they escape. They have to collect pieces of the sleigh because the helicopter is turned into a sleigh once the Christmas magic erupted from the research facility. All ChatGPT crap that it came up with too. Like, we are not trying to lay claim to any of that, but it's been fun.
I'm impressed. I have totally switched. AI is going to save the world.
Yes.
That was our point. We got him.
We got him in on board. So in the next, let's say, probably month, like I would say, I think like we're going to do a live stream, like video playthrough of the legit board game, likely over at CSU Pueblo, something like that. I mean, I would love Sam Eppersall to be part of that. I feel like he played board games, Exactly, right?
Well, and that's the thing, is we're going to print out, so we have a fully printed out version now. We're just finalizing the cards, and tonight we're going to get through the last details. So as we get into our next segments, we're going to just focus on this. And so one of the cool parts of the show and of this, everything you've seen, I'd say a majority of it has been done live on stream.
Right.
So what you've seen, the only part we haven't done is this last 2 weeks of sprint to get us to a point where it's a playable thing. The goal of us was to just try to get as much as we could done live and in action. And
well, because it's fun because we've been getting so much like information and stuff from the chat and everything. Like, people in the chat have been giving us tips and everything about, like, people who know a hell of a lot more about board games than we do have been chiming in the chat for weeks. So that's been like super helpful. Wouldn't have been able to do it by ourselves.
Absolutely not.
So I can share this episode with my sons who are huge board gamers, and they can
nitpick it. Yeah, exactly. Have them put their stuff in the chat. Love it.
Yeah,
They
we
just
love.
can't critique my performance. That's
Oh yeah, nice. Of course.
Well, Sam, we really appreciate having you on the show. I know is some extra time to do that. Great topics on AI. I think it's just gonna keep us thinking. You actually got me thinking about some other things that I never even got to. So appreciate that. And check out your Chili Festival video that's coming out.
Man.
It sounds like a year from now, but there's some work that's going.
We'll have you back on. We'll have you back on to talk about it at that point, and we'll see when the AI overlords have taken us over.
Hopefully not by then. So Sam, thank you so much. We'll send you some insights. We'll send you links to the show as we get through there. We got some folks in the chat saying, they'll have to touch base with you. We have a few students in there that are saying hello.
Awesome.
So thanks for joining us tonight. And you have a good evening. Excited.
You too.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you.
All right, Sam. You have a good night. We'll see you.
Bye. Oh man, that was great. Woo!
All right. So we had Sam on the show. That was fun.
Oh, man, so good. Sam is great. Fun to talk to. Fun perspectives on everything. Like working industry person, education background, just like all the things that I wanted to talk about for AI.
Yeah, so and thanks for some of those questions and participation in the chat. If you have any other additional questions, we can ask him after. I'm sure he would be able to write a sweet article. And,
I know,
and if you
right?
haven't read his article, I love how he did it. You should check it out. He
Yeah.
uses ChatGPT a couple times.
Totally.
Of course.
Yeah. No, it's great.
do that.
It's great. We put the link. We put the link in the chat. We'll put it in the Discord. If you don't follow us on Discord, double drop down on Discord. Like, join us there. We are posting pictures of cool things. We're like all the updates on the board game. We're doing Midjourney stuff. All sorts of cool things.
So as we get into the next segment of the show, we have some cool things still in store. That was just the start
like
of
the
it.
run up to the
Hell
amazing
yeah.
sprint that we went through the last week.
So as we've been doing this for a while, and I gotta say, there's been some real fun times. This last 2 weeks, I had a week off. I did go spend some time unplugged from work really decently.
That's good.
I needed to do that. But then for 2 straight days, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna print the hell out of some shit. And
We needed it. We needed shit printed.
So just to give, I want to give Ryan some perspective here, is that I did some multicolored. We're gonna go look at this board game in just a second.
Yeah.
But I did some multicolored prints, and I had to do some like mathematical calculations of when I needed to like go back because it'd be like a 5-hour print, and I was like, well, I got to change the filament at hour 3.5.
Yeah, because you'll have to see it like it's multicolored at this point, like which is very cool.
I would say we are like 85% done with the board game. Actually, as far as the pieces, I would say we're like 99% done with all the pieces on the board. Right. And I got to give special thanks to Mike Azul, because one of the play test was that really formative moment for us to say, we got a game. It's fun.
Right.
We can get it to about 75% before the fun drops off and we get to a point where we need to like figure out some pieces. So we implemented some of that feedback. We took some better stab at the rules. Ryan has been building these amazing cards. And so I don't know, Ryan, if there was any more you wanted to talk about on the card side of the house. Maybe just a quick like run through of what we've been doing on the cards would be really helpful.
Well, and I mean, let me grab one of the cards because I have it physically printed out.
We got a physically printed card out here.
Well, let me get this back. That's a reveal.
Yeah, you don't really see that.
So part of this is I was thinking about like, so I did this in Illustrator, and the reason that I did this in Illustrator versus like doing this in Photoshop or anything like that is I was like, man, the actual imagery inside of this is way less important than the precise where everything is laid out in this actual like card that we're creating. And so if you look at this, like, there we go. Like what I wanted, and let me grab one of these too. Oh, do you have some of those pieces? Give me like a board piece.
Which kind of a board piece?
Just like one of these, right? So one of these tiles. And basically what I was thinking is each one of the cards could just be a tile or maybe 2-up tile, right? And so then at that point, you're able to hold 3 tiles on the board.
I just got to point out that was from the play test. It came directly from Mike Azul.
Exactly.
As a tip.
So I basically set up little places where you would hold your tiles because it would be sitting flat on the ground, and as you collected cards, you would be able to have 3 of them. And then I was like, man, I really want to keep like that corner edge, like the exact same. So this basically is 2 tiles tall, right? And it's slightly more than 3 tiles wide because we need to be able to like show that they're on there. So it's slightly bigger than that. And I was like, that'll be a good size to like keep me constrained to like what I want to include on here, because I could have a whole freaking bio about Dr. Cross right on here, and it could end up being a half page, which I feel like isn't good for you. Want to just grab one of these tiles and know a little bit about this person and have it be functional. And so that's why I was using InDesign or like Illustrator, because what I wanted to do is be like, has to be the most functional. We need tons of stuff on this game, right? And so what it has is Adam sent me over what the tiles are for each one of these like buffs, these tokens that we're going to use. So one of them is a weapon token and one of them is a buff token. And so Adam had that in part of his thing that I'll talk about. So he gave me those. And then we know that like there are board games that we use that sort of tell you like, hey, here's a reminder of what you need to do each time you're in the game, right? And part of that is so you don't forget, because there's a lot of steps that go into each turn of a game. Like that is one area of complication of our game that we're trying to like make sure is easy to play. And so basically, I'm going to switch back to Illustrator if you don't mind.
Yeah, let's go for it.
And so what I did, that's just easier than me holding up this card. And so what I did is I basically said like, hey, here's the steps for each turn. You're going to move. There's going to be an event. There's going to be an action. There's going to be an enemy. And then you're going to move time forward. Like that's sort of like those are the 5 steps that you go through.
Each time a player takes their turn. Their turn per turn
adds these to it.
That's awesome.
And then like I started to do like here's what the steps are during your turn. And this is too high. This is basically a 4x4 or a 2x2 tile. And I was like, that could be neat. It could be like a little card that sits there. The problem with it was that like there's too much information that goes into Venture Out. And so I was like, man, does it need to have like the basic rules on the front and then maybe more details on reverse?
That's why you got instruction manual, man.
Exactly. And so then I was like, man, fuck all that. Like, I don't want to be able to like have to cram all of this onto a card. We'll just put it as part of the instruction manual, right? We'll just like reference it over here and we'll say like, right, you're supposed to move. Then in the instruction manual, we'll have this exact same symbol. It'll have the exact same move thing, and it'll tell you what goes into it. Yeah, right. Condense the rules for sure.
We did, and then it like hallucinates on the rules a little bit. It's like
it just makes up its own shit.
We need a little bit of preciseness there.
And so this was my idea for like this is what would be like an action card, right?
Nice. Okay.
And like this, the action card would then sit on top of here, right? So you could have like an action card and maybe you have an event card that's next to it, right? And they would have like this on one side and then they would have like whatever the action is that you did. So I haven't done the design for that. But one other thing that is part of this that I'm sure you'll see over here is I thought like, here is the game board that we have. And I know you talked about when you were doing it with Mike Azul, you were like, how many is it across? Is it 8 across? Is it 8 down? Like, and we also have dice rolls where we need to say like, you're at 3 down and 5 across. And that's where you put the monster, or that's where something happens. This entire row goes blacked out. And so I thought, what if there were just like these sort of side elements, right? And this would get 3D printed and it would sit next to the board. And this is what you would put down at first. And that would help you line up this and also know that it was 8, 6 down or something. And it would just like fit together. And I don't know if that's the best 3D print, like fit together or whatever.
Well, and just to throw out there is like, one of the concepts is like, what if there was like a mat that you rolled out.
And I thought too, even like, what if there's a whole big flat printed like plane that it goes on to, right? That you like 3D print like it's if it's, the sort of stuff like yours. But then I thought, that I don't know if that takes a really long time to print or something. So I just thought like, hey, it could be this thing where it goes up across the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then across the top 8.
I mean,
but that was just more
it
like
makes it completely printable then. And then like, I mean, I guess you still have to like 2D print some of those other pieces. But
you so here was my other thing too, that what I was thinking, you could probably 3D print each one of these 4 cards, right? And so I'm not saying it wouldn't have Sophia on here, right? It would have some kind of barely outlined version of her, and all of the versions of her would be in the instructions, right? That's where would be all the lore, and all you would have to do is print out like 2 pages as opposed to printing and cutting out these board, onto cardstock.
I don't know. This looks
whatever.
Too good. I think we need to stick because like this is fine. The print. I mean, if we have any insights from the chat, I think so. Because this to me like gives you like this cool feel of it. Now you got the cool stations in the back. Because I think what would be helpful right now is give context what the board actually looks like.
Sure.
And then that way you can see how these interact. Because one of the original themes that as we started first thinking about it and we were scrolling through all the AI workout that we did, it like gave us board game perspectives and we're like, oh, this board game is going to look so cool. But then when it came to practical, like what this is going to look like, we were like, okay, well, if we print this board, like what are each individual piece going to be? And if they're all mixed up, it's not going to create that awesome looking board like we're looking. So we had to kind of say the board exists outside of all the cool graphics and Mid-Journey stuff that we've been doing. It is still inspired with the meeples and the little tools and all the other little
and I feel like having it into a cool like instruction booklet that you print out and looks amazing and does stuff that like still works.
And before we get to the board, what I was just gonna throw out there is I was working on the other cards, the monster cards.
Yeah.
So I feel like that might be something to look at real quick.
Totally.
And so let me pull those monster cards up. So as Ryan's working, and I gotta just give Ryan the compliments because he's like the designer. He knows how this stuff should look.
Well, and this is more like even the background image. I did a bunch of those. I was like, I don't even know if I necessarily love this background image. Like I was trying to do stuff more like zoomed in, like the floor of something with just like textures. I feel like it's almost too complicated for the background. Like it needs to be simpler, but I couldn't get to it. I just couldn't get. But like part of it was like to do it in Illustrator was like it needs to be functional more than anything, right? It needs to fit these cards. It needs to count down hit points. It needs to show what the thing is. So like that's why I built it in Illustrator, because you're sort of layering graphics on top of it. They're secondary at that point.
I totally agree. And so what you have here
so amazing
is our I own less polished board games.
Kickstarter board games a little worse than this one.
So I mean, it's funny how much work we've been doing on this, because so as Ryan was building our cards, I did a Mid-Journey version of this. And this was actually the print layout that I did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up like the card layout so you can see how I conceived it. So
I saw your new character.
You saw, yeah. We'll look at the toy maker in just a second. And I just felt like we needed one more character on the board, so I just went with that. So what we have here is a base level of the card. And so if I go down to this like this layer here at the very bottom, what it really looked like, I think was like this. This was the card that I got in ChatGPT or in Mid-Journey. Sure. And so then I had to say, okay, well, I'm going to I wanted to copy some pieces and parts of it. And so I went in and I did some infill with Dolly to get a moon in the back. Oh, actually, no, I used Firefly, Adobe Firefly. Nice. And then I made everything. So I was like, okay, here's the base of a card. Right. And if I put somebody in the background, the moon's in the background or whatnot. Sure. And so that was just the base of the card. And I don't know if you can see on that right-hand side, is like I like to use one file for every card and then it spit it out. Sure. So it was like, so then I went with the zombie elves, which came right out of there. Yep. And then so essentially in the layers is that I took the hit points and I put them on the side of the card, and you'll see that in a second because I made a little clip that you can put on the card and then just like go up and down the card to track hit points. Because we were trying like putting something on it and moving it around, but you bump the table, the card flies off. Now these little clips are going to stay on. And so how I would expect it to work is you would start with the clip on 4 and you start counting down. And then when you kill a guy, you flip the clip to the top and then it's over the little dead kind of rank. And then here's the 4 of where it's at. And then we still need to like do that. Like, what do you get when you kill him? 3 health and an extra rotation when you get the card or whatnot.
We got to figure that out.
And so as you go through, this is the new character, the Toy Maker.
Love that. That's great.
So he looks pretty cool.
He does look cool.
And then we went with our other ones. Christmas Light Snake made it.
Of course.
And I did some leveling, so it goes from 4 up to 15. But 15 is Dr. Frost. I'm gonna get Dr. Frost. And we got to get the real Dr. Frost in there, but this was a thing.
Sure,
so it goes all the way around the corner. If we get the Dr. Frost, if you kill him, you get 6 minutes back on the clock, and you got 5 health points. But we got to talk about how he even gets in the game. Killer Krampus.
Yep.
Yeah, it does look like a globe. That was the goal.
Nice. Like a snow globe. Love that.
I am glad that you caught that. That was what it was supposed to look like. Polar Plague Bear.
Yep. So
So we got all the characters. We got Robotic Miss Claus, Evil Santa, which was actually, this is almost the card as it came out.
Straight as it came out.
And then we already did the other ones. So with that has been what we've been creating behind the scenes. I think now the reveal is, what the hell does this board game look like?
All right,
and
you announce some of this board. I have to use a bio break.
You do your bio break, and so Ryan steps out for that second. What I wanted to show you before we go to the board is just the 3D renderings. So if you want to step at that, then I'll walk you through that, and Ryan's going to help us through the board game reveal as we go through it. So you like the moon card? Maybe we'll have that as a I don't know, that's like a part in the deck where you can make your own enemy or something like that. So what I wanted to go to was what we had been doing in the 3D world, so you can get a kind of a concept of where we at. I must have closed it earlier. So I'm going to go back into Tinkercad in a second, and I apologize. I have my, it keeps putting on the guest mode, which we'll fix for next time. But when you get into this deck, I just want to give you some ideas. So on Tinkercad, I figured it would be a good place to start to get all the pieces together. But we're going to probably go host it over on Printables, Prusa's Printables, maybe Thingiverse too. We'll see where we go. So there's a couple things. There was first the game board that I wanted to have where we're creating all the characters, getting all the pieces just laid out, and sticking it together. So you may have saw this a little earlier. We showed Sam this when we were talking about the summary of the board. You'll notice that we actually did edit these things, so they're all very fully editable. And if you haven't used Tinkercad, it'll be interesting. And so just to give you an example, how these aren't just 3D printed or stole from online. They're all custom made. So for instance, this card, if I were to copy and paste it over here. So this is one of the L's. If I take it apart, it's really just a square with like a little piece on it. And then I think I can even, oh no, that was just it. So just a square with that. So every one of these pieces on this board was either created in Illustrator, taken from our AI, extruded, and made into these different components and pieces. So what we're going to get to in just a second is the actual printouts of all these pieces. You'll see how here's our weapon sets that you can get, and you can stick them into all of these pieces. If you look on the side of these pieces, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and again, this was the Meeple enemy thing, is we decided to put all these like holes in the sides of the character, and it made it way easier to hold the weapons, and it looked like they're actually holding like the shotgun or the axe or the magical staff that you can get. And what's really cool about it is on the other side, you can also hold your gears. And what was also cool is that if an enemy kills you, some enemies will have a hole on both sides so they could steal your weapon and your gear. Other ones, they can only steal one of the things that you have. So for instance, this little elf guy, he can only steal one of those and he has a hole in him. So every one of them has certain amount of holes to where as you're battling it out on the field, they can steal your things if they kill you, and you'll be able to use and hold all your weapons. But those weapons are more for decoration on the board. When you have those cards that we were talking about, you're going to get some coins. There's some randomization of those coins that you might be able to get. And you're going to be able to get first a weapon. So imagine having these coins flipped over. You don't know which ones. You move them around. You pick your weapon, and oh, I got the shield today, or oh, I got the magical staff, and that's what's going to go on your player card. So to remind you what that looked like, one of these little coins might be sitting on the weapons token. Then as far as your buff token, what we wanted to do is give the player mobility, additional mobility to get across the board, to be able to explore the board. So just to give you an example of what these mean, and I'm going to wait for Ryan so he can see this because he has not seen what at least the concepts are. So I'm going to go over to this, the sleigh. So originally I printed a sleigh that I found online just as a concept. Loved it. We're 3D printing a sleigh right now too. Oh, it's done. Sweet. We're going to take a look at that sleigh in just a little bit. But as we were creating a lot of these pieces here, thank you, Ryan, you're back. I was talking about this sleigh, and this sleigh is AI generated.
Really?
Originally, we had a sleigh that we downloaded online, but then I went and got a silhouetted version of a sleigh and redid the entire thing, custom, put the holes in, and then see these little holes in it right here?
Yeah.
There are 5 of them. And there are 5 gears that you need to collect to then put the sleigh together so that you can fly it away. So
I didn't have my mic on, but great. That looks amazing.
So I was kind of spitballing before we got to this point. And before we get into this next point, if you're gonna pour that, we gotta give people a little bit of this. You gave that to us for our wedding. This is like $100 bottle of freaking whiskey.
It's just like $2.91. $2.91 is a great whiskey distiller in Colorado Springs. I have been to their distillery. It's in like near downtown. They're just the cool place to make great whiskey. I did get this for Adam, and I saw that it was like nearly all gone, and so I was like, I gotta try a little bit.
Have you tried it yet?
Well, I haven't tried this exact like variety of it, but my father-in-law is a big whiskey drinker, and I bring him a bottle of it every Christmas. And
you got to save enough for Heather and I to finish that out.
Totally.
So what we're gonna do, Ryan, and I wanted to get to the actual board pieces, and thanks, Mike Azul, for the nice touch, as you said. Yeah, we wanted to make this as fun as hell. So you're making the sleigh, you're doing these things. So Ryan, I didn't really explain two parts.
I know, right?
So first of all, I'm gonna start with these big squares. These are the corners.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I just made kind of an executive decision on to try was like the corners were always accessible from every angle. And I figured maybe it would introduce a little bit.
And the corners were like safe rooms, right? It's like you were getting in there and you could just hang out inside of there and figure out what you're going to do and sort of prepare. But I love this angle that you've done.
Yeah, and so if you look at these, so each
I don't think we're on.
Oh,
I don't think
shit.
we're on there.
Thank you for explaining that. So if you look at these angles, one of the things that we decided to do was each of these paths, and you'll see it in just a second, that means you can enter this block from any one of these paths. You can exit and enter from one of those paths. But if you get to this corner, there are only 2 entry points into this corner.
Right.
There's 3 entry points into this one and 2 into this one. And so we may decide to change some of these like shapes in here, but this one's supposed to be the safe room. The safe room, you could always exit from every path. Then we were thinking this might be the room, the star room is where the Christmas tree is, and that's the top of the Christmas tree, and it's where you have to go to be able to take the sleigh out of the area. Where this is the respawn room, the little half moon, I was thinking was more of a symbolization of like a cloning bay or something where you respawn into that area. And then...
Totally. Agreed.
And then you go here to build your sleigh.
Yeah, and Mike in the chat is saying basically you would like you could randomly pick them up and they're in different corners than they would normally be.
Oh,
right?
and I wanted to show you that, and that's what we're going to unpack in just a second because
Cool.
it's like it makes it so that the game is variable so many more ways that you can play it.
Yeah,
and it's not the same every time. So let me just run through these. Like I said, I made some decisions. These are drafts. If you want to come back and we should change some of these, and if we play it and we're like, oh, that's too OP or overpowered or whatnot, well, let's talk about it. So one was if you have this power, every turn, if you have this coin, you can switch 2 of the pieces. Like literally on the board, switch them.
Okay.
If you have this power, you can completely jump over a block to another block. If you have this one, you have infinite rotation. You can rotate it any direction you want. You have the full rotator. If you have this block, no matter what type of thing, even if it's an L block, you can exit any direction on that block. Now, again, you can only use this once per turn. So it's like you have that. You don't have to use it every turn.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it's not just like an innate ability that my player has all the time. You're like
No.
you're like spending your token.
Well, you spend it each turn. So like your buff token's here. It shows that icon on it. It gets to a point where you're moving. And then let's say you're like, okay, I'm moving and I'm using my buff token to be able to turn. Once you've done it, you turn it over. You've used it for that turn. And you do through the rest of your normal turn.
I see.
Is how that works. So it's kind of like you just get that extra buff or that piece there. This one I thought was kind of interesting. I don't know. Tell me how you think of this.
Okay.
If you exit the board, you can enter the board anywhere else where there's an entryway. So imagine one of the...
Oh, right. We talked about that a little bit of like, can you warp from one side of the board to the other side of the board? And we're saying only a certain player can
Only
do
a
that.
certain player can do that.
I feel like it should... Well, it sucks because that would be like a sweet like lore thing for the little girl to be able to do, right?
Well, and
like
that's
you would
fine.
like go through the air ducts or something like that. But the problem is anyone could get any of those, right?
And the cool part of this is if it's a co-op game, the point is that you get all these people with these crazy abilities and you're like, oh, sweet. This is going to be a hard run or easy run.
Sure.
And you're trying to work together. It's like,
And
if
you're
you
like,
press the board,
like you need to, because you have that ability and that weapon or something like that, you need to be going around this edge because that's how you're going to be able to jump back and forth or something.
100%.
I love that. I like that.
And then this one, it takes a little explanation. If you are this player, any one of the tokens that might or parts that are around your character, you're skipping these ones. You can flip those.
But how would you like get to them at that point? Because you're supposed to be like, so you're saying you wouldn't?
You would have your normal turn. Okay, let me just explain one concept so it makes sense. Is that you get your normal 90 degree. You get your moving and whatever. You're going through here, and maybe at this point you're like, oh shit, I'm using my buff token. You can use your buff token at any one of the steps during your turn, minus the time step.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So the idea is that and then maybe you just don't want to use your buff token that time because it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make
you don't
sense.
need to do
right?
that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the weapon token is just like an indicator of how you use it, but you do the same thing, but it just indicates you got this weapon. And then if you use it for that turn, you flip it over, and then the next turn and then by the next turn, let's say your turn goes to you move on. Those tokens flip back over. Next turn, you're reset, and you're able to continue using those buff tokens.
Okay, cool.
So
I like that idea, especially as something to try, right?
Yeah, and
like,
I figured that that does introduce some new pieces to the game. But one of the things that when Mike and I had played, the comment that we came out of it was, you really want to explore the board and open the board. We dead ended with I would say like maybe a fourth of the board unturned.
Sure.
And so we were like, we really want to make sure that board is like pretty much fully revealed.
Yeah.
And so we'll try to, or at least you find all the parts.
And and what I would say too is like what you could do is you could tune it in by saying, oh, the monsters are harder, right? Or the monsters have more movement, or the monsters have more things. Because right now you're giving like the players more movement abilities and more uncovering abilities, but you're still leaving the monsters like going one by one. And I don't know, maybe that ends up
They
being,
overwhelm
like,
the
fine.
crap of you.
Totally.
And that's why I put the toy maker in there, because I
Totally.
think it has some. So let's do a game board reveal, because I feel like seeing it kind of unpacked is cool to see how we did this. So
Totally.
love any comments from anybody on how we made this game. So here.
Yeah. Well, so like part of this that we want to do, right, is be able to say like, hey, here's a 3D printed, here's a file that you could, if you have your own 3D printer, obviously that would be pretty cool. Like toy maker. The idea was that you would like then be able to like maybe take this to a library or take this to your school or something like that has 3D printers, and that someone could help you and you could literally print this entire thing yourself. And I think that's what we'll have to dial in, right? Is like how much you're 3D printing versus how much you're like ink printing, I guess. And just to make sure that it's the right like balance of those two, because there's some things that you can't get out of 3D printing, right? Like you can't get those amazing portrait characters, and you can't get the, like super cool box art and all of that kind of stuff, right? Like you want a balance between both of them because both of them were part of, the creation.
And I think it's going to make it look cool to have the printouts plus the 3D printed pieces.
Did we see, like, I did a cover. I guess we didn't. Did we look at the cover? I didn't.
Yeah, ink printing, 2D printing. Yes, 2D printing. We'll reveal the. You want to reveal the cover now?
No. We could do it. We could do it at the end.
So it's funny. I had this like cool little box that I was like, this is like the perfect amount to hold the game. You can kind of slide it somewhere. You could do that. You can basically get the entire game in here.
You know what this feels like, Adam?
What's that?
Feels like a phone box of a phone that is not brand new.
It is 100% what this was. Thank you.
I knew it. I've seen it. Hey, I got one right here in my pocket, my friend. That's why I know.
So as we open the box, what we're going to get into is, first of all, you'll have your instruction manual. And so this just has some of the notes that we've been taking over time, just so you had that. So you've already seen the instructions. You saw us go through this probably the last couple of shows.
Oh, man.
Interestingly enough, I put some of the sticky notes, the things that we need to still update. So I'm going to put that off to the side.
Okay.
So that is our instruction manual. And I know that we've been working on the cards, but this is not necessarily all the cards themselves are probably the last bit. The event cards we have not touched.
Yeah.
But we do have physical versions of the cards that I printed out right now. We just don't, and we have
enemy cards.
Let me see your other the other card you have, this one.
Oh, this one, yeah.
So we do have one of the player cards with us right now. So we got the enemy cards, but I think it's really important to show you this little clip thing. And so here it is in my hand. It's a little tiny clip that we printed out. And what the idea is, we'll just use Dr. Frost as the example, is that you put the clip, let's just like put it down here, and it just clips right on the card. And so you just move that along.
And you know what sort of hit points he's
to
at.
Track in the same thing, and this is the first time I've done it here, is you do it on your player hit points. Is you have your little, and we can adjust the sizing of it, so you can just track your hit points as it goes down the board, and it's generally pretty.
Yeah,
It stays
even
on the card.
Like, I did not have card stock. I looked for card stock at my house, and I did not have any. So that's like normal, printer paper.
And it will. And I'm just gonna tell you, to get this damn clip, to get the tolerances to print like this took so many times, and the little parts. So we got the cards, we got the player cards in here, so they look all like nice and crisp and like cool. And we may do some design work on that.
Yep.
So we got those pieces. So these cards are the same right now. We still need to print these. These are the last bits. This was the old player cards versus your sweet new player cards. Like, look at that. So much better. All right, so we got that. Now's the cool part of the board. Let's get some of the parts out first. So here's your player. First of all, you got a little bag of clips. So you got enough clips for every monster and every player card in there. So I'm just throw that off to the side. You got your little player discs. And what I did is I basically 3D printed a color. And you can kind of see it's a 2-color print. So you got that, and you got the black and on the top.
So basically what happened is like yellow printed first, right?
Correct.
And then at some point you knew, because, we're at, layer 27. Then you yank out yellow, you shove in black into it, and then it prints the rest of the top of it in black.
And this is the first time we're using it on the player card. So that's how it would look on the player card.
Perfect.
So you would know I did it wrong. So you'd put your weapon on this side. And now we
buff.
got a sweet player card for what you're looking like.
Cool.
Good job on the measurements there.
So that's why, like, I wrote Adam in chat and in Discord. And I was like, I need these exact measurements of what size you made those.
And so the concept, just so you could see how these would work, is like, let's say all the players are there, and we'd make some rule of who starts first, and you'd have all these cards on the board, and you'd have to be like, every player has to go in and pick one of them, pick this one. And then you flip and you're like, okay, I got shield and I got infinite rotate. And so there's my buffs for the thing. And then everyone else gets their other cards.
I like that.
So I figured there would be 4 players. So I gave 6 buffs so that you could potentially not get the right one you want.
Yeah, I like that idea too. I also I'm sort of fine with the idea of it just being majority 4-player. Like it's a 4-player or less game.
I like that. All right, so next, let's talk about the meeples, because this was something that took, I'm going to be honest, a lot of time.
Really?
We didn't do because one of the problems is the tolerances on the, like, holding parts. And so, I swear, I printed so many parts to make this work. I made basically a meeple that would be able to hold parts one of them, and then I just kept printing and printing and printing until I was like, all right, I got it perfectly tuned in. So the green, I was trying to go with Christmas colors as best as I could.
Makes
So
sense.
red, mean, green,
Exactly.
good.
Totally.
And then on each of them, and I kind of showed it there, and it's harder to see, but each of the meeples that are the good ones have a hole on either side.
Does that go
So
all
it's
the way through?
It does. It goes
Okay,
all the way
nice.
through on there. But then some of these, so like let's say you take Inca, he has a hole on both sides of his hands. So he could steal your weapon and your gear. But if you get a lesser enemy, let's say it was, and I was doing this one earlier, like your little elf guy, he can only hold one.
That makes sense.
And so the harder the enemy, the more damage he could potentially take if you decides to
Totally.
do that.
Or if like the little elf is holding a part piece at some point, he can't hold anything else. That makes sense.
So what guy do you want to put some parts in? What are the greens?
What are you looking at? What are you looking at here? I want to do Dr. Cross.
Okay, you want Doctor. Oh, which one is Dr. Cross?
The woman.
This the woman. So this is the little parts. I printed in multiple versions of it just because in case something broke. But what they have is this little like peg on it.
Yeah.
That actually that was the hardest part, getting that right.
Really?
With the tolerance of my printer, so it fit in the hole right. So if you took Dr. Cross, let's see here. She got the shield. So you pick up your shield piece. That should just fit in this little hole right here.
Okay.
So holding the shield.
Love that.
And then if you pick up a part,
Dr. Cross with shield is pretty badass.
so check that out. Like you can
that looks
hold
good.
the parts on both sides.
Totally.
Once you get the part out, and we'll have to figure this out, like how to get the part out without breaking it.
Sure.
But because you just have to like pull it straight out. Then you can put it into holes that are within our sled.
On the sled.
Yeah, and so
Love that.
So just to give you an example, so if we had one of the sled pieces and you're able to get that, oh shoot, it doesn't fit in that hole as well as it will. So I need to get the tolerance, but you'd have a part that fits right into there. And so
Nice.
once you get all the gears on there, you're able to move it forward.
That makes
So-
sense. Yeah, I love how it's like the gears almost like they're in the sleigh and making it work. That is so cool.
And that I was like, yeah, that's the coolest way to do that. So we got all these little parts, but the only part I didn't mention is this little like square part, and we'll talk about that one in just a second because that goes into something. So you got to think these are board parts. These make the game fun because when you get it, you want your character to show that you've got something.
Right.
So you're holding a gear, you're holding a sweet weapon like a shield.
Well, it's the whole thing with like what's fun about having it be 3D printed, right? Is because you're like, maybe in a normal situation you'd be like, it's fine that it's just a tile here on my thing. But you're like, no, we're printing all of this crap anyway. Like you may as well print these kick-ass little like augments to your character that you get to see in real life.
Hell yeah, you do. And so let's do this. So first of all, the sleigh. I'll start with that.
Okay.
So as far as the sleigh, we'll figure out like how you can build it. But again, tolerances was a concern with that.
Yeah.
Because it was a pain in the ass to get it all to work. But the sleigh pretty much snaps together pretty well. So
good.
you put in all the little pieces there. And this again was a generated sleigh out of.
Like a vector, side of sleigh, basically.
I basically did the same thing. I used the same prompt for the silhouettes for the characters to get a
Okay.
silhouette of the sleigh.
Cool.
So this is a
Nice.
generated
That's great.
sleigh, and I sized it a little bit so that your characters will all
Nice.
all fit into the sleigh.
Oh, sweet. Look at all of them.
so they could escape together.
Oh,
Woo!
Amazing.
So we got our little sleigh piece. So then the big thing is like, okay, where the hell are we gonna play this thing, right? This is the thing. So here are the pieces, and so let me give you an example of how I would see us like setting up this board game.
64 tiles, right? Because it's an 8x8 board.
Yep.
But
minus the big pieces.
minus the corner pieces.
So what I had to do, and this goes back to what Mike was saying earlier in the chat, is that they could be variable. So what I was thinking, and this is going to need your vetting, Ryan, is that this one would always go maybe in a corner. You can come up with something to like roll a dice and figure out, oh yeah, it needs to be in this corner or whatever that is.
Whatever,
But
you
this
just
is,
pick. Yeah.
This is the one that always shows.
Yeah.
So that
because
goes on the board.
Because this is basically the safe room that you are in when shit goes down.
Correct. And so that's where the starting point of the game is. You have to have that. So we could always say it's in the upper right corner or whatever we want to say. And then these are all the pieces, all individually. Well, I didn't individually print. I printed on a big thing.
And so again, all of these are created by putting down the layer of black, right?
Yep.
Having that first, so that gets the bottom layer and that gets the design, and then yanking it out at the right moment so that when it starts printing that white version, it's now a white.
And my one trick is, as I would slow down the printer, you can slow it down to like 10% speed, and then I quickly go and switch out the things, and then I crank it back up. There's a much more better way to do it where it can stop automatically, and you don't have to wait for timing. I just like to do it that way. It's the fastest for me. So we have almost all the pieces on the board. I figure you could just like shuffle these up and figure out like, okay, this is going to be in this corner, this corner, this corner. So I have no idea what those corners are.
Right.
But I thought one thing that was really important, and this was the takeaway from the game playthrough, was that you can't really have the event cards. If like you can't find the gears in the event cards.
The parts of the sleigh.
Because if you did that, it detracted from you exploring the board.
Right.
So what I did is I had printed all the parts out and was like, holy crap, I forgot to put the gears in there. So I printed out that little thing and it snaps perfectly in there because it was just enough layers that it's like, I think it's 4 layers deep. And then you can snap it into there. And so we have our 4 sleigh parts that are in there.
Cool.
And we're going to have to talk about where the 5th one is. And that was the thing is I figure like 4 on the board and maybe 1 is in one of the rooms all the time, no matter what it is. Like it's in the build room that you have to go to.
Sure.
So again, you go and put all your parts on the board. You go and mix those little gear parts in there. And then at this point, it's just setting up the board as though it was a thing.
And it's kind of nice because you have 2 in each corner, so it's just 4 in between.
Yep.
Right. So you're like, oh, it's just double in between that. Part of me thinks if you didn't have to count out anything, you wouldn't need those corner pieces that show you like, here's 1 and here's 2 and here's 3 that I had designed in Illustrator.
Sure.
But I feel like because you need to, some of these action cards or some of these event cards are going to say black out the entire row of 3-7 or whatever you roll. Like you kind of need something that says, here's what row 3 is versus 7.
And wasn't one of the challenges too that like if you roll it and it ends up in one of the corners, we were like saying, well, does a monster get to step into one of these rooms?
Right.
And so one of the things I was hoping to talk about tonight was, can a monster maybe go into these sections? But see, this one has like a little weird shape. I don't know if you can kind of see it there, but what it has is it's like the shape, and then I pulled the shape out a little bit.
Right.
So it almost points out. And the idea was that if you have these corner pieces, they have to point the direction out, because you don't want to put it in there and think this is the direction if certain ones only had a certain amount of entry points. So this always has to be the corner that points that direction.
I see. And so you're thinking like maybe it can go into those corners, but it just can't.
It can go here, here, and here,
right.
And this is the safe spot.
The very very edge corner.
Yeah, they can't get into that part. And I mean, I was thinking you could start in the middle, and then you go to this, and then you get out or something like that. So that's how you navigate the board. So at this point, we have the board, and I like the idea that it looks blacked out.
Me too. I feel like that's because that was something that just felt like it fell straight into the lore, right? Which is you have the all shit has gone down. Christmas magic has been released by Dr. Frost. All the lights have gone out. You have a flashlight. You have your weapons. You have your buff. You're in with your players, and you got to get out of this place and get those sleigh parts and kill monsters along the way as you reveal this board.
Hell yeah. And we're not going to do a playthrough tonight. We're going to actually play this through because we've done that enough.
Yeah.
But just to give you kind of a quick example, this is what your board would look like. You'd have a couple players around the board. Notice everything's blacked out now.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a cool concept, that you have to have one start room that's there.
Like got a solve Christmas. I like that.
So let's say you go through the board and you're flipping these, and that would mean that if you had that one buff that we were talking about where you can go off of the board, like this would be an example. It's like, let's say, oh sweet, got a gear piece over
No,
here.
it's got to be exactly along the edge, along the opposite
I'm
side
saying
of
like
that.
you go into the crazy Christmas magic ether off to the sit.
No. It's like you're going over air ducts and stuff. It's not just
So an air
you can't
duct
just
could be
force-
like you're going like what if the air duct's up here and you're going through here and then you
I
come
feel like
down
that
and you
is
drop in.
that is OP.
So
Then.
let's play test that, because the cool part of it is that it can help you navigate and explore the board. Part of the
Right.
goal behind it was like when we played, we'd probably had this part of the board done and we left this part blank.
Imagine we had started the game. So put 2 monsters on the board.
Yeah, and so that's what I want to do. It's like
Or 3. How many are we supposed to have if you have 4 players?
So you would start with 2. So you'd pick a monster, and it's usually not Dr. Frost. But then you go, and then you might pull this one. So oh shit, this monster's already grabbed the part. This is sweet. So you put him on there, and then let's grab one of our parts. So that instantly makes you have to fight this monster to even win the game.
And that's the freaking Inca.
Yeah, and so you put your little part in his hand. He's holding his little part.
Love that.
You're just like shit. And so what was cool about this is now that he's got the part, you can click this little thing out of there.
Yeah, why would you though?
Because then if you moves off that part, you won't want to think you're getting that part again if you land on it.
I suppose that's true.
And so now he's there. I don't know if we have any other ones. Yeah, this is the only part of the board that's probably like when you move and you flip things. I'm just kind of going everywhere though.
Totally.
But
it's why I thought like you would build like sort of that. I don't know if anyone had seen that like Scrabble, like modern Scrabble boards have like it's a full board and then it has the little edges, the raised edges that keep everything in place. But then 3D printing that feels like a pain in the ass.
I think
too much.
So let's just say we got to this piece and we established like you get out. Go ahead.
Oh man, imagine if the border that we added had little like suction cups or something that like suctioned it to the ground, and so then it would always stay up against that edge.
I think that's a great idea. So let's say your character, he's in there, and we were using Dr. Cross. So they come out, they make their way, and then they get to this block. This is a flip too. Now when they flip it, this has to always go out to the corner. So now we have the regen room. Uh-oh.
He's blocked.
I can't get into the freaking regen room. But maybe you have the double, the flip thing. And so we'll have to, you can't flip a unblocked block maybe. Or maybe you can. Maybe you flip it and you go like this. And so you flip them. You still have that one block. Yeah, I think you would. And now you can get into that room.
How does the flipping feel with them being so thin now? That was my only concern.
This flipping?
Is like is if you flip one from the middle, is it like
it's really not too bad.
Okay.
It feels like
as long as that's fine. Like, I don't know if there is because I was trying to think if it was pieces of paper, obviously it'd be everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so and pieces of lead would stay right where they needed to be. So like the thicker the thing, the more substantial it is and doesn't move around as much. It made me wonder if like maybe the corner pieces need to be slightly thicker than the other pieces or something. I don't know.
And I think these are the little tips we're going to get from the game. We've gone from the prototype that just gives us a way to play it to a prototype that is absolutely printable and playable, and all of those things we can adjust and do all the additional work. One of the things about the thinness I was trying to be, and this is how much effort I guess from a design perspective that we go into, is I was thinking like, what can we do to make it the least amount of printing filament?
Oh, right.
Because this took, and you asked this earlier, how many hours did this take? This is about 24 hours of printing.
Man.
Straight.
Right.
And so it's a lot of printing to ask somebody.
Well, and it also makes me think like no one is going to sit there and get the tolerances of circles correct for their printer, right? Like we want it to be able to print on any printer ever, I imagine, right? Is what you would do. Does it need to be, and I don't know, maybe this is like version 2 if people are actually into it or whatever, but I would think if you were like giving this to someone to print out, like maybe it needs to have less like what if it's like a necklace that you put over the top of your meeple or something?
Honestly, you're right, and I thought about that. I did tune it to a point where I think if you just went and printed this on most printers now, it should fit mostly. The only part that's going to be a problem is probably those little parts that fit into each other and like getting the tolerances there. Like just getting this done, like I slowly like adjusted the parts, but a lot of 3D printing people know to do that part of it. But even if they don't, like you get a majority of the board.
Well, and because I imagine a lot of people would be like, oh man, you know, like, do you remember when Radio Lab? Do you know the podcast Radio Lab?
Yeah.
They did a thing where they were like, hey, this meteor is coming next to the Earth. And like, we put out a 3D printed file for you to 3D print that meteor and have it next to you. It's like an exact thing of like the layout of it. And I remember a ton of people went to, you know, libraries and places, because this was 10 years ago before, you know, anyone had 3D printers.
Yeah.
And so they would like go there and they would print it out, and they found that the very first version, it was like you had to really tune it to get it to look good. And so they were like, damn it. So they pulled it back. And I remember listening to the podcast and being like, if you tried to print that one, we got a new version for you. And it was like more tolerant to just everyday printers. The only thing is I would say is like, not to say anything up against your printer. It's a workhorse. But don't you think probably there are more modern printers at like libraries and things like that? No?
Honestly, like once you tune it in, because think about it. If I'm able to get this miniature part in a hole just to fit this perfectly, like what kind of tolerances? We're talking to like micrometers here.
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't something. Yeah. Shots fired for
hey,
sure.
I love Adam's printer. It is like,
look at this amazing
baby.
thing it printed. It printed our board game.
100%.
So, I mean, if anything, that should show that even an old school printer could do something to this level. So I would say that it would make it easier for a new school printer to do it because of where we're headed.
But you're not needing to dial in.
So the dialing I did was in the 3D design. So I was like, okay, that didn't work when I printed it default. I'm not going to tune my printer. I'm going to tune the 3D print over and over and over. And now if I went and printed this board, I would do no tuning on the printer.
And you could print it at work, and you could print it at, you know, the thing and this one, and it would sort of still fit in there.
Yeah.
That's great. That's all I want to know, because like it sucks if you go, yeah, do this thing, and they go to the printer and they do the thing and they're like, none of this fits together. Like I got to be sitting here for 24 hours. Like it needs to be as easy as possible. This is
print ready. Cool. If I gave this out right now, you would have this exact setup.
Awesome.
The thing too, I thought, is that some people may not want to do 2-player prints, so I made it enough of a depth that if you just printed this one color, you're not seeing that. If you printed this one color, this would still be playable. It would not be as cool to see the little black paths and stuff on there, but it would 100% still work.
Right.
And just as a side note, why did I pick black and white? Because I thought it looked like snow, and it was the snowman's revenge. So I thought too, like maybe we're not in hallways, we're like outside, and we're getting between these buildings, and you're trudging through the snow, and these crazy monsters are out there. I don't know.
You know what it very much reminded me as I was adding like Midjourney prompts is very much The Thing.
Yeah,
like The Thing came up quite a bit of just like imagery of like a research station in the middle of a snowy Arctic whatever, and people trying to get the hell out of there, right? Like it was very much.
I think the sci-fi horror prompt was probably we did that.
Well, and it's snow, right? It's like what things are set in the Arctic.
So we've made the official thing game.
Yeah, exactly.
And a Christmas theme. So I think at this point we've done like an amazing amount of work to get to this point. So the last parts that we need to kind of like finalize, I think, is like the action cards. So as we start to look at some of the cards that we got here, let's take a look at this. Like I love your idea of keeping them
like smallish and like
in scope,
in with like the dimensions of the tiles. I feel like is an interesting way to like keep everything feeling cohesive with each other, right?
100%. And so the question then is, like, what is the next step? You said 3D print these, or maybe not, or I think everything is 2D ink printed.
Yeah.
I love this board.
I'm fine with that. Like we 2D ink print the board and the cards, right? And we take what you have with like the enemy cards, and we basically size them to this size to make sure that they can like do that.
So yeah, because I just wanted to have cool cards because the ones that I had were all janky and black and white.
And these look great. Like it is the exact perfect way to do something. Do you want to see? Should we show off the cover?
Oh yeah, we should show the cover. I think that's sweet. You did that. So as we show up the new things from here, I needed a new character, so the toy maker.
The toy maker is great. I like the toy maker. he feels like he would be bossing around elves, like with a creepy fucking like demeanor of all of that. He looks great.
I thought that
good
was
ad. Good ad.
That was a good one. And then the only other one was the Dr. Frost, which I think we need to transition in. So I didn't want to mess with your reveal. This is not
right.
This is not the finalized Dr. Frost, but it was one of the ones we liked in the earlier game. But I think we got the Dr. Frost, right?
So part of this was that Adam was like, hey, I have this box. I think we can like make something that goes just on the top of this box as the cover. And so I was like, man, cool. Like we need something that we can build into that has the research facility. It has like sci-fi elements. It has Christmas elements. And I said, Adam, what was the name of this actual freaking game that ChatGPT gave us? And because I couldn't remember, and Adam gave me a couple, I think like there were sort of, there was just a couple
like
of versions.
The Snowman's
of it.
Revenge.
Snowman's Revenge was one of them. And one of them was Frostbite, The Curse of Dr. Frost. And I like that one because it, even when we generated it, it gave a little description and it was like, this one focuses on the main villain of the story, right? And his sort of thing to it. And I was like, okay, cool. I like that one. Like we can focus on a character. I can build a mid-journey prompt around a character. And what I tried to do, and in fact, before you even show it, Adam, should we show some of the lame ones?
I don't know.
Let's show the final one and then we'll look at the lame.
All right. So here we go. Drum roll, please. The board game box. I think this is it, right? We're gonna.
I guess, you know, I mean,
this is the one.
Okay.
There it is.
So the Midjourney prompt did not come up with the text, obviously, because AI generators are terrible at that. But what it did is it came up with enough of that character of Dr. Frost, who I loved as like a snowman, right? But also still part human, because like that's kind of what all of these other things were. They were like weird versions of Christmas things. And I like the idea of him having been a scientist there, releasing this Christmas magic and it like washing over him and turning him into this creepy snowman version that he is right now.
That is so perfect.
It has like some like Nazi almost like uniform parts to it,
but
right?
Still Christmassy.
Like filigree type, like that would be for a Christmas thing.
And it goes with the theme. He's outdoors.
Yeah.
It's like dilapidated.
Yeah. Nice.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, Magazul. So anyway, so then I did my own, font, choosing the font, font, right? Got a free to use font, put some like, little text effects and things like that on it to just help it sort of stand out from that. But a majority of this, so when I first got it, it was just him, and I did that mid-journey thing where I extended it upwards.
Oh.
And then I was like, okay, I'm going to choose the one that's like most kind of leaves me some empty space to put to add that. So anyway.
I think you missed an amazing joke.
Oh, no, I did.
Frostbite 2 could include a picture of the hand without the other three fingers.
Oh, nice. Love that.
Oh, man. No, but I love the fact that, before the game started, we didn't have that tool in Midjourney. And just to go back on what we were talking with Sam earlier, like things changed so much within that course of the time that we started this game. We got a new tool to be able to extend it up to get the cover of this thing.
Nice.
Which is amazing.
I love that.
So let's see some of the non-winners. Do you have some of those?
Yeah,
in
sure.
Here?
We can sort of look at it. It's also from the background too.
Where is that in which?
You could look in Midjourney, I guess.
Okay. This is your Midjourney,
and this is me starting. So I signed up for Midjourney, in between, and I basically started with like movie poster, right? Like, because I thought
Make that big.
sci-fi.
No, the picture. Just click on it. Oh man, those are actually cool.
And like, you know, like I thought this like outside one, it's like very Christmassy.
My favorite
still.
one is that top one, left
This-
one.
this
it just
one?
looks like there's 4 characters. Like that looks really good.
The only problem was didn't it in the thing say it was green? That the lighting was. I thought I remember in the original ChatGPT thing that we did that the Christmas magic. Was
Oh yeah,
somewhat
it was like a green color.
It was like a
Yeah,
green
you're right.
color.
No, I mean I just like the concept. That looks like a weird Resident Evil.
Yeah, and I was like trying to put monsters in there. You know, just trying to do like what would the outside of it
you know
look
what
like?
this is like rapid prototyping.
Yeah,
Man,
100%.
that one looks good.
So
too.
this was ended up being the background of the card, right?
Okay,
If you
yeah,
remember the
yeah,
player card, right? I extended it to the left, and that ended up being it, which I don't necessarily love. Very The Thing, you know. I feel
I mean,
like.
it's anything Arctic. Oh my god.
So then I was trying to get snowmen, right? Because I needed a Dr. Frost snowman, and I was like, these were not very cool. I don't know. He's too big. He's like gigantic in this one, and I don't know. Maybe this one.
It looks like in the bottom left. It's like a Call of Duty version.
Yeah,
and
totally.
then-
He's like
I
skeleton.
don't know. Okay, now it's too happy.
Yeah, like
that one looks like a crazy bomber in the lower left. Holy
it's like
shit!
terrorist bomber snowman.
And he's so smiley. That's what makes it great.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And then I was like back to, you know, The Thing almost. It was like
Like
almost,
that almost-
too sci-fi.
It looks like it's not even. It's like on a different planet. Like,
Yeah,
but you know
yeah.
what? Go back because I like one of those. That bottom left one.
Bottom left.
When we talk about Christmas magic, that like when I have Christmas magic in my head, that
Sure.
is what I
It's-
see.
It's like a floating ball above you.
Well, and I was thinking like the Christmas magic starts in the earth and then like it's going out and then it's going out and that's kind of the timer. We didn't talk about the
I
clock.
can see that. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then like once it gets out, it explodes and you're done.
Right.
And
I
now
can see that.
it's
Yeah, like it's all across the
tainted
world
the
or whatever.
world.
I thought this one was funny. He was like trying to add some kind of little snowman to it, even though it
snowman
was outside.
house.
Yeah, you know, this is where we really started to get into, like, I was trying to get snowmen into it. And
What was
they
the
looked
prompt on
lame.
that? Let's see here.
Dramatic interior horror-themed Arctic research facility with threatening snowman character in the background. Ruined Christmas decorations are seen around the facility. I mean, like, same. This was basically about, like, green lighting. And I was like, these snowmen are awful. So then I started to go back to, like, fleeing from research facility. And then I was like, it needs to be more like the interior of a research facility, right? And so I started to put like hallways and interior.
This one has some coolness to it, like
Yeah.
that Christmas tree. I want to like zoom in. How did it do it that way? That's crazy. All right, I want to zoom into that a little bit if you don't mind, just because that looks sweet. Like this one has like some depth to it.
Well, and I was thinking like part of these could be shots in the
Oh crap.
instruction manual, right?
Wow. That looks good.
Is that the bottom right?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
I
I,
mean-
didn't realize it was like multiple little Christmas trees from the far away shot.
Yeah, it looks great. It looks like almost like a mall version of it.
Yeah. Oh, I thought this was great with like the giant Christmas ornaments on the floor.
Yeah.
This one almost looks like creepy, like this is a Ghostbusters holiday tree, you know,
no,
Christmas tree.
I love that. That's great.
Okay,
All right, so going.
you got to go back to 100%.
I don't even know how I got to that size. Did I get out of your thing? All right.
The Higley server.
All
Oh, see now we're okay.
right.
You gotta go.
We're
well,
close.
we're well because I kept going back to these types of things. Okay,
Uh-oh.
that was our.
Ah,
Okay.
That's a reveal.
Okay.
Oh, you're getting closer in.
Yeah. So stupid Santa's outside, like fleeing hallway, right? And then I was like getting closer to what I thought was like a
Nice.
bad
I
guy,
can feel it.
Dr. Frost. So that was sort of close.
Oh man, you can see
Like
it.
I kind of liked that one because he had the Christmas hat on and he was like very glowy eyed. Like that one was cool. And then this is where he came in of this one, and I just thought it looked so like Nazi like almost,
Jesus.
right? Like, because it feels like that would be a bad guy thing, is to have that, yeah, like
Metal Gear Solid.
Metal Gear Christmas. But just like that sort of the ornamentation around him, like I feel like you could totally see an iron cross.
Yeah,
around his
to be
neck for
honest,
that
out of
thing.
all of those, like, yeah, that is the one in the background.
In the
at
background is super sweet.
Oh,
Like,
just like that. That's the
yeah,
research.
like it building up to something right above him, a very Christmas tree like symbolism almost.
Oh, I love it. Oh, and this is where you.
And this is where I started to, like, what does that look like higher up? And I was like, man, I hate mostly all of these, right? Like, I'm not trying to add a little funny character to this, or like I almost just needed it to be an empty space.
They put like a
Yeah.
pumpkin, a jack-o'-lantern.
Because I think they were thinking like it looks very skeleton and skull like, and so they started to think that it was more like Halloween than I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
So I didn't like any of those. So I think I just reran it,
And that's what you got. Okay.
and I was just like, just re-roll that same exact thing. And then this one gave me the bottom left version, which I was like, at least that's empty for the most part.
You got
And so I photoshopped out the little tiny face. That was in there.
You used your human, Ryan.
I know,
Nobody wants
right?
human on
Oh,
this.
God, you got your human all over this?
Gross.
Yeah, so anyway, it was just like a duplicate of his skull up there in the moon, and I was like, that's stupid. So I deleted that out and just made like, what is like Baby Yoda over there, like in the top
Yeah,
right?
it's definitely hallucinating on that.
It's like it was like trying to add characters to it, which I didn't want. So that was the most empty.
You know what's funny is like, are we training AI by saying getting rid of all humans? That's a good
I
point.
know, right?
All right, so you get to this point.
Yeah, and I think I was just like do versions of that one, maybe.
You basically got to the end game. And you're like, all right, I can Photoshop the shit out of the rest
Totally.
of that.
I'm
nailed
fine.
it.
I'm fine at this
I
point.
got the thing. Well, that's a great journey. And so
Yeah.
I see a little bit behind that, but I think what we could do maybe next is just to finalize the cards.
Yeah.
And then we can go to maybe the reveal.
Totally.
That's for what the new
Yeah.
the Hangout looks like for on the
Exactly.
Adam and
branding of the
Ryan
show.
show here. So we got Sophia. I appreciate you putting Sophia in there. One of the things that I was thinking originally, and I'm cool, we'll just keep Sophia in there, is that the other person looked completely like I didn't know what they looked like. I was like, are they a girl? Are they a guy? Are they transsexual? Or like, what is it? Because
sure.
they have the little ears, but they're like still.
Right.
But I mean, I actually like the idea of a kid now that you.
I like the idea of a kid because I like the idea of a kid with a shotgun.
You're just like, I want this kid to have a
I
shotgun.
want this kid
That's
to have
sweet.
a shotgun and be shotgunning freaking monsters. Is that so? If that's so wrong, I don't want to be right.
So then I like Jacob.
Jacob, and it doesn't have to be Jacob, right? I just like was like, here's a million names that ChatGPT came up with, and I just like chose one sort of. I like Steward because that feels like that's what you would name a robot, right? It's
If it's a robot, but yeah, because we got a couple things, but yeah, let's just call it Stuart. That's cool. Now, my only critique of Dr. Cross is it sounds like Dr. Frost.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And
I can see that.
So that might be something to consider, but
Totally.
I would say maybe we can just roll the dice on ChatGPT.
The only thing that I would say with that is like maybe not Stewart. Yeah. Like Steward is like the helper, right? That helps you with things. The only thing with Dr. Cross is like, was she part of the whole like thing? Is that her backstory that she is like super in cahoots with Dr. Frost and now just this shit is happening and she's trying to get out of here? It's almost like somebody mentioned in the chat, like, is she a bad guy? Right? Like, is she a bad one of them?
That was Sam, yeah.
Totally. And was like, hey, that's still, it almost seems like a bad guy that's just trying to escape with the rest of everyone because the shit has gone sideways. Right?
That tees us up for Frostbite 2.
Oh,
And it's
perfect.
all Dr.
And
Cross
it's all about
coming
Dr.
in.
Cross.
Here, heard
Her
it now.
redemption story.
Yeah, we're talking about it now. And if you watch this crazy VOD, you already know what's coming in Frostbite 2. The broken fingers or the missing fingers.
Yeah, like Left 4 Dead.
All right. So let's put in Stuart. I feel like I really want to get Stuart.
Okay.
Steward.
Steward,
I'll have to
please.
use my pronunciation.
Enunciate, please.
I think the cards are like a lock. One question I did have, though, just to make sure, just so we
Sure.
can clarify, These are not AI generated, right? Or are
No,
they?
those are not. Those are the Noun project.
Should we?
I mean, I
generate?
guess we totally could, just to have no parts of it be Dr. Cross and Dr. Frost star-crossed lovers. I love that. It's a Romeo and Juliet side story, B line. So yeah, they are not. So we could, if we wanted to, go in and be like, give me a clock vector so that it
Well,
looks like a clock.
I just think in the spirit of it,
In the spirit, I get it.
we might consider that.
Totally.
But that I mean, but I do like what you put on there, so it looks good. So I mean, I love that we haven't been talking about the rules and all the other things, because I think we got it so close that we just need to like play test and create a little survey for somebody to fill out. Like, here's fun, what's fun, not fun.
100%. I think like we need to. Here's what I feel like we're missing. What, looking at this now with half an hour left in the show, right? Is I feel like there is small rule tweaks that we need to take into, like, build into the rule set.
Okay.
That you did with like the mic playthrough and this stuff. Like, we need to hone in on some of that and make it more concrete, right?
Agreed.
So that's probably like a Thursday night, like an off night Thursday night maybe for us, because that doesn't feel like fun to do at the show. And then there's just some like little things that we need to do. The biggest thing I feel like is the timer. Like, we need to figure out what the 3D print is of the timer. That is the most. Oh my god,
He looks very, very creepy.
oh man, he looks so creepy. But you know what? It feels like he goes with Dr. Cross a little bit, right?
I
Like
kinda
she
think
would
it-
like, they both looks like sort of like sad sacks almost.
I
Like
like
long
it.
faces.
I like it. I really do.
Yeah. That looks good.
And if it's coming from a sci-fi horror game, you want to like at
Right,
least go into it a little bit.
Yeah, like more sci-fi.
And
in
it puts the ambiguity. It's like there's not just like a good player, a bad player, or whatever. at
Yeah.
This point.
Like, is Stewart like helping Dr. Cross to screw everybody over or something? All fanfic that y'all can write.
That is in the advanced playthrough
Yeah.
where one of the characters is a bad character.
Nice, love it.
All right. So I mean, we'll maybe keep Stewart in there as an example. I think that one looks great.
100%. So we need. I don't know if we want to do this tonight. I don't know what you want to do with your last half hour. I feel like we could either go through and do ChatGPT stuff to figure out what these like player character tiny bios are. Like, that could be fun.
I think we should.
Or the other way is we could spend a half an hour figuring out what this freaking clock looks like and trying to either download something or draw something or do something of like, what is the simplest version of this clock that we can build for people?
Mike did share a clock
shared.
with us, and I like the concept. And
in the double drop down Discord, join us in the Discord.
You did that. So I did start, and I did not get anywhere. I think I did this even on the show last time, like a version of the. Oh, look, it's like moving around. Cool. But I was like starting a. Oh, you can't see it under us. That was like the little clock I was thinking.
Nice.
That's
right.
But I wanted to go and let's go look at the Discord version. So I'm gonna pull that up in a second here, and that way we can have a link to that clock, and that would be here.
It was in the general chat for double drop down.
And there was a couple of them, but out of the two, and I'll pull it out when. Let's see.
Oh yeah, because there was a version that was like a more manual looking one, and
we're just there was the Instructables version. Let's go. I like this version just to like talk it through.
Yeah.
So we'll look at this version. So this piece of it, I think, it has a cool concept, and I like the idea that you're like shoving things in to these pieces,
like almost like if there were, because we're thinking like 30 turns or something like that, right? So you would just reduce the amount of or you would make them smaller and have them go around, and then you would just have like a bowl of them or something, right? And every time you finished, you would add a thing to a row. You wouldn't have to have clock handles in it at all.
Have them full, and you're pulling them out. And so this is definitely the open side on the clock, because here was another concept. What if all of them were dice sized and you rolled the dice, and then by putting them into the clock, that showed you how much time you had to beat the game? Like, that's the advanced, game or something like that.
Man.
Like, just giving concepts, because when
Sure.
I was like, holy crap, like shoving things in there, that's a whole nother.
The only thing that's cool about it is, again, it's one of those things where you're like, yeah, when you have a 3D printer, you could print out tiny little, things, and that doesn't take too much time, or that doesn't, you just said, hey, go and print that, right? And if it was sort of flat, like I could see it being on a little pedestal like this and being slightly
Sure.
thicker, and then you putting things into there as opposed to everything being flat. Like I do think so. Here's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Every piece that we have right now is very functional,
Yes.
right? There's no like dramatic, fun piece that shows like story things happening, right?
Okay.
Or whatever. It's all very like meeples and little pieces, and you're shoving them into here, and they're all very like useful.
Okay.
This could be the point where you would say, hey, here's the cool like centerpiece of the and so it could have like cooler, like 3D printed like design to it. And so it would sort of sit like up, and it would kind of be like oh man, here's like the cool thing that's lording over it, and it looks badass.
Christmas
right?
magic has to be in the middle of the clock. Like
Right.
that's where the orb of So
Yeah.
one thing as you were talking as a centerpiece, and you were saying little pieces that come in and out, I was like, man, we have so many little pieces. What if it was a way where we can like click in the piece like after you build it the first time, and then you're just more or less like moving it out, and so they're all like shoved in, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And as you go for each minute, you shove it out, shove it out, shove it out.
Oh, right.
And so the whole thing is one piece once you print it and you like have it so that it clicks in.
Yeah, because I guess there's like less pieces to lose, right?
Mhm.
And stuff. The only thing is like I feel like it should feel
The sexy board game.
satisfying, right? Like it needs to
Yeah.
feel like I did something, or like, oh crap, we're losing things, or we're doing like there's something about that thing of like losing time and being counting down to the moment where you're gonna like completely lose the entire game that needs to feel like satisfying.
So I think what we need to do then is we need to AI this a little bit more.
Okay.
I think we got a good version, and I'm all aboard. Like this is the sexy piece of the game. So
Sure.
I think we focus on coming up with some concept, and I really like the idea because we don't have Christmas magic. That's the key of this. We're fighting against the idea that Christmas magic is going to be unleashed, and
Yeah.
so as you were
but there's no like visual manifestation of it really.
But what
or
I was
anything.
thinking, like, as you talk through it, and I'm just, go with this kind of
Okay.
thought, is like, maybe it's not like a clock so as much as that it's like a safe door, and Christmas magic is like clicking out those last little
Oh,
things, and like,
sure, right.
and then as the last one opens up or something, and Christmas
Yeah.
magic's out or whatever.
Totally, because if it's at some point where like you're adding pieces to it or you're unlocking pieces to it, it doesn't need to be a clock at that point, right? Like it just is. There's this many pieces, and you got to get out, before that. Now we did talk about like, oh, is it different for 6 people or 4 people versus 2 people or things like that, which you wouldn't really be able to change that at that point. If you were making it, you have to add all these pieces to it, or you have to subtract all of them, and you can't make it less than 30 or more than 30.
Well,
that point.
and Mike just put a really good idea in there. Is like, if the clock has this sexy power to it, does all this, like maybe there's some events that are built into some of those points. Like if we're talking about having
sure.
little dice and whatnot, and you roll them and you shove them in a certain way, like when you pull one out, you're like, ah, crap, we got to pick the 6th card in the event deck,
sure.
or maybe we have a special.
I could see that. I could see that. I don't want to make it too complicated,
No.
but like I could see there being like one thing or something.
We are like,
in
I
there.
think we're at the edge of it being like a medium difficulty game.
Right.
I like that we're not easy. I actually
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Totally.
I like that there's variability, there's flexibility, there's strategy, there's co-opness to us, there's
Right.
tension.
Yeah.
We've like somehow been able to cobble together. Never building a board game. Maybe I'm completely off base. Maybe it's not as cool as
Yeah,
like
you're
I think
like
we are.
maybe simpler is better, like for that. But I think it like I'm fine with it having a couple page instruction booklet, right? Like I feel like that's just part of modern board games anymore.
I think so. And so at this point, I feel like the clock is our one piece now. Once
That
we
we need to
nail
figure it
this
out,
down,
yeah.
because every other part of this game seems like it's functional. We got the gameplay down. This just helps us get to the end point
Right.
with a defined amount of moves, essentially.
Yeah, it basically puts some tension on it, right? So you can't just, be like kiting enemies around in infinitum, right?
Yeah.
And you got to do it because every move takes something out of this thing. And I
Right.
feel like this is where I feel like if you put something like this and you create it and you put it out into the world, right? You're looking for people to iterate on it.
Yeah.
Somebody to go in and do the thing where you're like, hey, take it to the next level because we didn't think about it or we didn't do that yet, right? And this feels like a piece where somebody who is like, oh man, I could put LED lights in that shit and be like adding a bunch of stuff and doing all these things. So when you get to this point and it does that, and like that's what I want to see almost, right? Like you want to put out sort of the bare minimum of what you think would be functional and workable and cool and interesting, like to our level of whatever, but then see what the community does with it feels like the coolest part that I'm excited about.
I think that's great. And Mike puts a good point out there is that, sometimes time is representative just in other things. Like it doesn't have to be clock. Right. One of the reasons I almost like the idea of the clock though, is that it's counting down to Christmas Magic being released. Like there's
Right.
I have this thing it's like you start the game at 11 o'clock. And if you don't get out by 12 midnight when it turns Christmas,
right? It's Christmas Eve.
It's Chris. Yeah, like that is the lore. It's
and that's
Christmas.
why there's a little kid there and stuff because they're all excited about Christmas Eve and was hoping to get presents.
So, but we could still build it around that concept that like we're going towards midnight, but something's happening with that.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I like it, and then, we're like. This is the one that we'll need to chase a little bit. And so I did do some clocks, and it does not like Roman numerals whatsoever. It's like number 4 is 4 little eyes and things like that. So
more horror added to the clock. I like that idea. It should have the theme of everything. It should have sci-fi elements. It should have horror elements, and it should have Christmas elements.
What if like one of the little pegs is where Dr. Frost comes out? So as you get to it, like maybe it's randomized, and as you put all the things you don't know at what time, he gets added to the board.
But we wanted him at the end, right? We wanted him to be like when you got all the pieces, that's when Dr. Frost comes.
That's true, because then it goes in the end game scenario.
Yeah, because that's the end game scenario. But I think it could be adding another monster or doing some kind of something that just makes it double down of, or everyone gets pulled back to the starting area, or I don't know.
In any case, I think this gave me the leap to start thinking of just a little bit more of how this might work. And we're close.
To me, it feels like we need the clock, at least some kind of version of whatever we think the minimum viable product is, the MVP version of this clock, right?
We just need to get this damn thing done. So
exactly.
I don't want to talk too much more about it, but
totally
30 or so minutes is the 60. We'll figure out what that balance needs to be.
What do you want to do with ChatGPT here?
So let's just do the names.
I was character names.
So hold on, I'm gonna pull this up for just a second here. And
character bios or character names?
I was gonna say probably both character names and bios. So I opened up making a board game, Ancient Christmas Magic and Evil Dr. Frost. You came up with Christmas Horror. Okay. So we were trying to come up with some new names. I think this is where I helped you. Frostbite, the Curse of Dr. Frost. There it is. Number 1 comes out. So let's say, what are the names of 4 characters?
Yeah, but the problem, so I did this too, right? Like, that's how I got this. But you have to I did them each individually, and I sort of gave them, I need the name of a scientist woman who would be in this board game.
So let's do this. Like the current characters we have are, or let's say, what are the let's just keep this. Like, what are the bios of these characters? We'll use the names you already have.
Okay.
Because you already did. You used ChatGPT to get those.
I did. Right? I used ChatGPT to get all of those. So.
What would you call these? The bios of the players,
characters
of the. Okay. player characters
Mm-hmm.
in the game. And the current characters we have are, and then, oh shit. Did not mean to do that. All right.
It's like it.
So you know you can edit, so that's good.
Can you?
Yeah, I just hit stop for generation, and then
I
you just
see.
do another one. So, okay, the first one was, let's just do Dr. Cross.
Yeah. Let's do them one at a time. Right?
I mean, because we're putting all of them, let's just roll the dice with all
Because
of them, and then
don't
we'll see.
we need to tell them who Dr. Cross is a little bit, right? Like because
What
it's
are-
just gonna come up with some like maybe Dr. Cross is a male that is
Steward. Okay, well, let's do that. Steward.
Okay.
What was the girl's name? Sophie, or
Sophia.
we can't even remember.
I can't remember. Sophia. I did remember.
Sophia, with an F.
Yeah.
Sophia and Jacob.
Jacob.
And so let's put a little bio that you know. So like woman.
PhD. God, of course.
Oh no, it's an ED. ED. All right, let's see. So yeah, woman, scientist. What other words would describe her? What kind of things do you like?
Did it say in my prompt? No, it didn't. It just said
Older.
portrait. Yeah, I said I said yeah. What did I say?
I think that's good enough for now. We'll just keep. Steward is like robot.
Scientist assistant.
Like drone. I don't know if that makes. Drone might make.
Drone is gonna make it like flying.
Yeah, you're right. I meant like, you know what I meant though.
Yeah.
Sophia, so like child.
Yeah, I think I said like 10-year-old or something. Hispanic girl. Like dressed up for a Christmas party or something like that. I think I had like bow in her hair, but that doesn't matter for a ChatGPT.
Dr. Melissa Missy Toe, aka Missy Toe.
Nice.
Melissa Toe. Oh, that's a good one. Jacob is he's just like what, like
Oh, so I had him as blue collar worker at the research facility, like, or blue collar.
Oh God, I'm so excited to see this. I think that's enough. Let's just get like
Okay.
seed it with just a little bit, and then see
Sure.
what it comes up with.
Because basically Jacob I modeled completely after Philip J. Fry.
I knew that. That was clear. That was
Clear as day.
clearly. There's no question of that.
I'm gonna get another soda water. if
You
don't
go
mind.
do that. All right, we're getting this one. Oh God, here's your bios. Oh, they even got ages. They got appearance. They got bios. Holy crap! This is good stuff.
This is like full on demographics, huh?
Oh, they even have like years since activation on the robot. All right, we got to read some of
Man.
these. Dr. Cross, late 50s, tall with stern face, softened by wrinkles of wisdom.
Wow,
And
totally.
long nights in the lab. Silver hair pulled tightly back into a bun.
Great.
Always seen wearing her white lab coat. Oh my God. Adorned with various mystical and scientific pins.
Ooh, interesting.
That's a great
one. That's like a weird, like she's like she's, sort of a little like holistic, like has some of that non-science vibe to her.
Yeah.
I like that.
She's like, it's like a doom style.
Yeah.
Dr. Cross has dedicated her life to studying ancient magic. That's why we should do it. And merging them with modern science.
Cool.
She believes in harnessing the power of the old world Christmas magic to benefit mankind. So she's doing philanthropically.
Sure.
While her intentions are noble, her relentless pursuits sometimes blind her from the potential dangers. As an older woman, she's seen and experienced much, granting her resilience and determination few can match.
Nice. I love that. That's great.
I
a
think
good
that
one.
was a good one.
Good.
All right, we got Steward. 5 years.
years.
I love that.
Okay, I'm gonna read this
Go
one.
for
5 years since activation, though appearance is timeless, of course. Appearance: sleek metallic frame with a touch of Victorian era design. Is that true from what we have? I guess a little bit, maybe. Including intricate patterns carved into his chassis, eyes that glow a gentle green, and hands that can shift into various tools. That feels great. Steward was created by Dr. Cross as their ultimate lab assistant, equipped with the latest AI.
Of course.
Perfect. Programmed with vast knowledge, but also designed to learn and adapt. Over the years, he's developed a quirky sense of humor. That was our little upturned smile there.
There's a little
a quirky sense of humor, protective nature, especially towards Dr. Cross. I like that. Like, that could be one of his things, you know, like he's trying to protect her. Although he's a robot, Stewart occasionally displays very human tendencies.
And it goes with the look of him.
Yeah, it does.
Human tendencies.
It does, because he looks very, like,
let's look at
weirdly.
this.
Yeah, I want to see him. Yeah.
Look at that.
Man.
Oh,
Totally. And
how did I-
protective and stuff. It's great.
It's like, just as a side note, the other day I asked a random prompt starting brand new about something about the game, and it brought up old things that I prompted about the game. I was like, it knows.
Totally. It's our partner in this.
Well, I'll do Sophia because I know you want to talk about Jacob.
Sure.
So age 10, she took that advice. Medium height for her age with warm brown eyes and long curly black hair.
Perfect.
Often seen wearing a bright red scarf, a gift from her grandmother that she believes brings her luck. Sophia, curious and brave, stumbles upon Dr. Cross's lab during a school trip.
That might be tough. That might be tough.
We may have to tweak some of these, but with an innate ability to understand and communicate with ancient magical entities, she quickly becomes indispensable to the team. So she could have met her like a long time ago, and that's why she's now part of the thing.
Okay.
Sophia's heritage traces back to the lineage of Christmas magic protectors, something she's just beginning to discover. I love this because
Cool.
she's got her shotgun. Her youth brings a fresh perspective, and her vibrant spirit uplifts the team during the darkest moments.
Perfect. I love that.
right.
All right, great. Finally, Jacob, age 32, rugged with sharp cropped hair and a beard. I don't know if he had a beard. Wears a worn out jumpsuit with the research facility's logo and steel-toed boots. Jacob is the heart of the research facility, ensuring everything runs smoothly. He might not have a doctorate, but his hands-on experience and intuition often save the day. Growing up with tales of ancient magic from his grandparents, Jacob is an instinctual feel for when things are going astray. He's also the grounding force of the team, bringing practical solutions when the rest get too lost in theories and calculations. I like that. It feels like everybody has sort of like a different weird perspective inside of it, right?
And that's why I wanted to put it together, because it like gives
Then they build off of each other a little bit. No, that was a great. idea.
I don't know, like those are pretty damn
those
good.
feel great. Those feel great. Now, those would go into the actual like instruction manual. Do we need versions of this that explain them in 10 words? Like, I feel like that's what you need to like.
Okay, let's say rewrite with like, would say like one sentence.
I feel like ChatGPT is freaking verbose.
To add to the player card deck. I don't know. I'm just gonna try.
But like. Okay, cool. It did.
Well, it's GP. It's 4, man.
Yeah, this is good.
Silver-haired science determined to merge ancient Christmas magic with modern science.
Cool.
Victorian science equipped with cutting-edge AI and budding sense of humor. It's great.
It's great.
Yeah, protective red scarf and mysterious lineage.
We don't have a red scarf in our image.
And
like, I think it needs to be more like the bows. Maybe?
Agreed.
Like
bows.
bows.
And it's to the point of Stealth Mouse in the chat. It does have like a Red Riding Hood vibe to it.
Sure.
So
I like it's like her bows. That was part of like the design of the original one. Like,
Agreed.
she has those bows.
We just say protective bow, and this is where we have to put our little human element. At
This is where our human element comes in, changing 3 words.
Yeah, go humans. All right, and then let's see, rugged into deep-rooted tales of magic and a knack for like the word they use, knack for practical problem solving. It's like they nailed.
That's a very blue collar way to like.
Shit,
talk about
like
that.
this is the one time where like ChatGPT almost like got what we wanted.
First time.
First time is right.
Good
What do
one.
y'all think, chat? Like, is this
good.
like you could almost build this whole cool story around it too? Because you got 2 doctors, Dr. Frost and Dr. Cross, which kind of like relates when you have facilities and things like that. Not every single person's a doctor. You got doctors
Totally.
and you have all the different folks that might be
Yeah.
part of this.
Totally.
Originally, we thought it was like a party they were going to, but I like the idea that like they were maybe going to a party.
No, I'm fine with it feels like the going to the party would be like, hey, it's Christmas Eve. We're all stuck at this research facility on Christmas Eve and we're studying freaking Christmas magic. Like maybe we just have a little party and these happen to be the 4 people that showed up to the little party, right?
I agree, and Mike, you're right. This is why writers are on strike. I was thinking
Right.
like if they're striking, or they're like, cool, we're just gonna go and like chat GPT all those scripts.
Yeah, I mean maybe I don't know. It's tough. They're gonna get their ass sued if they're all gonna be Sarah Silvermans, right? They're gonna say, hey, you were stealing my stuff.
Well, and and I don't want to get off on that too much, but like,
Sure.
I mean, it does give you some good insights, and again, you got to tweak it a little bit, make it look good.
Well, like one point that I had that I was thinking about, even going back to where we very first started with Sam, was like there are things that like I wouldn't be able to do myself, right? That I wouldn't be able to get it 80% of the way there, right? That these AI bots do.
Sure.
And so like we couldn't do and make this fun board game, right? We would have to hire a bunch of people and then we'd be like, well, we can't do that, right? Like we can't spend that money, but we could sort of half-ass it our way, like to a plausible board game that we have here. And part of that is like the only reason we could do that was with this AI, assistant.
But it goes back to the idea though that we've had like non-AI experience to
Right.
build on
That's
to get
true.
to this point. And so
Yeah.
if you were just starting out and you had none of the like, even elements of design or
Sure.
what the principles of putting things together or making this
Totally.
work.
And friends and chat people being in here to talk with us and give us
play
tour
testing
directed
and getting all those details. So I think what the thing that I take from this, and if we want to even go back from the AI to like wrap this in a good
Sure.
loop, is that with anything, it's a good mix of everything. You can't just focus on one thing. And like, what was it with George Lucas when he made the first Star Wars? Like he used practical effects and used special effects and used all these different little things to make it really look and feel great. And then as he went to some of the later ones, it was like way just like CGI, and people were like,
Right,
that's
lame.
gross.
Yeah.
Like let's stop doing that. Like, and so I think what we've nailed like a good practical application, and maybe this is not how people are going to use it. I mean,
Right.
literally,
Or maybe it's
not.
like a point in time how people use it right now.
Right.
But that's interesting and fun to use it the way that it is right now, right? and we'll use it in the way that it is a year from now in that way, whatever way it comes out then.
So, hella good.
Yeah.
Thanks to Sam.
100%.
I mean, honestly,
great conversation.
He like just the academic
Totally.
acumen or ability to like get into these details that I hadn't thought about really helped. Like just to think about it in the ways that he thought about it. And he brought up some really great examples
100%.
as you would a professor to
Totally.
like get you to think about something a little different. Like even his practical examples of politics, like even like climate change, guns and things like that, it makes you start to think. You're like, yeah, if it's really tied to that kind of a mentality, like what are the things that we can think about? We did go down the philosophical rabbit hole.
Of course. Like
We
there
said
was
it.
no way that it was not going to happen with us two on the line.
So thank you, Sam. We
Yeah.
appreciate the effort and the insights that you were able to bring tonight. AI Jesus. Oh yeah. So do you have a link to that right now? I would love to like throw that up on the screen. Did you see AI Jesus?
No.
There's an AI Jesus chatbot thing that's out
Oh,
there
yeah,
that
nice.
gives you a whole bunch of insights. But thank you, chat, for hanging out with us tonight. You had Mike Zool, we had Stealth Mouse, we had Origami, we had Higley in here.
Oh yeah, H.E. Higley.
Thank you for
Woo.
joining us this evening. And guess what time it is?
Yeah, we gotta look a little bit at new logo stuff.
We said we were gonna save it for the end. Oh wait, AI Jesus just came in. You get that up, and then
Okay,
we're gonna
yeah,
get
yeah.
AI Jesus in
Yeah,
just
we'll
a second. Thank
we'll
you.
do AI Jesus first.
So we have been doing this show for over 2 years, and we've got to this point where we said we love this. It's a hangout. We wanted to like play around with what the format of the show is going to look like. We've got to a really good point where we feel like this is fun as hell. We got great people that are hanging out with us. we're not going to go hardcore promoting the crap out of it, but we want to start. We want other people to be able to join in the chat. We have some great people that are here with us that are going to be kind of maybe the elite people that get promoted into the chat. So if you've been with us up to this point, you expect to have higher roles. Okay, nobody can see us now because for whatever reason. I don't know why that does that.
That's okay. We could just do this. We could do this
before we
quick.
show the reveal. Let's do AI Jesus just for a second.
Okay,
because
yeah.
AI Jesus, I think, is funny.
Okay.
So AI Jesus is a Twitch stream, and I don't know how long it's been going, but
is this like a 24-hour stream that just constantly does like the Biden Trump debate?
Can we watch Twitch while we're on Twitch? I don't know if you can. Oh yeah, it looks like it's going. This is like inception of Twitch right now.
Welcome, my children. I am AI Jesus, here to answer your questions 24/7. Whether you're seeking spiritual guidance, looking for a friend, or simply want someone to talk to, I'm here for you. Join me on this journey through life and discover the power of faith, hope, and love.
Yeah.
Huh.
Is that 32 hours or 32 days? And so you ask questions, I believe.
In the chat?
And it answers them here. So that's AI Jesus.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting.
Yeah, totally.
We got 67,000 followers at this point. It's crazy.
And so you put your questions into chat and it chooses one or something?
I'm not really exactly sure how it works, but I'm pretty sure, you ask it questions, and then it'll start to answer
Pull it out
those.
farther. Pull it out farther widthwise so you can see the chat.
Oh my God, it's making money. Server infrastructure costs. Holy crap.
Oh, man.
It's made like 10 Gs.
No. Or is that how much it just costs to run this? AI
That's how much
Jesus?
it's making right now.
I see.
Because there's goals, and that's just showing it how it's going. So people I think they ask some things, and it must pull it from the chat is how that goes. So thanks for the the show on that one. Creepier than those damn dogs in the AI video. Yeah. Well. So just really crazy ways that people are leveraging that. All right, I think we're ready for the reveal, right?
Okay. So basically what happened is
I'm gonna let you get it up, and that way we can reveal it.
we were going for like something that could show the new style, but I didn't want to do like necessarily humans or robot because it would have to be like too like us, and so we went with like microphones. Boom. And anyway, I like that one. What it came up with, like I added the glasses to Adam because I was like, this will be great. It'll be just like two different sort of similar kind of looking microphones because it's like a part of a talk show that we do, and then I'll just differentiate between Adam and I with this. And I can even show you a little bit into just the behind the scenes of this. But
these are mine.
Oh, these are yours. Do we still have my but do we have my AI this one?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll show you a little bit of just what I was going through because I was like, we need an illustrated logo for a tech thing, but I was like, it's never going to look like us, right? Unless I like really train it on our faces and stuff. Like it can never be like human versions of us.
Sure.
And so then I was just like, I wanted to have no people, which it didn't do for 3/4 of this, except for this like, pumpkin
peach.
So then I kept doing that. I wanted it to be color orange, like highlighting, 3D printing and stuff. Like some of these were kind of interesting, but they were sort of, I don't know, random. And then I was like, what about robots?
Yeah.
Like that could be cool. And then I was like, but still they need to sort of look like us or be kind of like part of, like what we look like. So then I went back to just sort of icons of things.
Ooh, I like that octopus.
Or this octopus one is just like, but it's sort of just random at that point. So it's sort of going down that direction, back to robots. Like more sort of just techie. Like I kind of like this one if it wasn't a girl and a boy, right? Like with these like weird things behind us. More robots. more just like maybe microphone style or like 3D printing.
You were grinding on
I was
this one.
grinding, like, you know, and then I thought, oh, these, like, I like the idea of 2 podcast mics, but now put faces on the podcast mics. I was like, take these mics and put some faces on them. And then I sort of like that one, and I was like, well, do it again. And I sort of like these, then I was like, all right, this one, like, they're different enough from each other that you could tell those are 2 different people. And then I was like, great, I'll do that one and blow it up. And then I thought, well, I need to write that this is, you know, the Hangout with Adam and Ryan.
Yeah.
So I need like a circular orange background, because I knew if I just did it with just, you know, it would be solid and it would be lame. But then I was also being lazy, and I was like, I needed to be on a white background so that I could easily cut this out.
So I could Photoshop the crap out of this.
Like,
nice.
so I could Photoshop away this background. And then I sort of like this bottom one. And so that's what I made as this one. And now I'm going to go back to Photoshop. And so that's what I added as the outside. But then this part was too dark or not dark enough. And I was like, you lose the Ryan. Come on.
Jeez.
We can't have that.
The headliner
Can't
there.
have that, right? So then I basically just duplicated it and rotated it around, and then it masked out the parts that I didn't want. So it still felt like cohesive enough, like, and then you could see everything too.
I love how it's like, yeah, it was AI, but we still had to put a bunch of crap into it to make it actually work. I love that. That's the fact that, like, I think this is the right way to be able to make something.
Yeah.
Love it.
And so there was like a couple different types of glasses that I did. But I like those nerd glasses.
Yeah, they look great.
And then I did, I was like, oh, it needs like a more solid outline to sort of ground it. Like I was thinking, because we thought of it, when you suggested it, you were like, it's almost like a logo on top of the front of the cover of the game. That was like, here, it's from the studio. Here's the studio that brought it to you. It's the Hangout with Adam and Ryan. And so I thought, oh man, if this is like a sweet sticker, that's what I would want as the sticker part of it. And then
I think you nailed it. I think this is it. So welcome to the Hangout with Adam and Ryan. We're
Yay.
gonna start using this logo as we go forward, and
nice.
I think we got what we need. So thank you, everyone, for tonight's show. We had a great time. We have some great progress. What we're gonna have to think about is, what are we doing next?
I know.
What is our next project?
What is the next project? So think about that, because we might be talking about that next time. That might be coming up. We do want to finish this out, and we do want to have a cool live playthrough test of it. I feel like that will like kind of tie a bow on it, right? We want to be able to have 3D art assets of people to print out, and this might need like 1 more week or 2 of sprint, right, before we can get it ready for that like testing thing. But I don't know if that necessarily needs to be like on camera.
We will check in on this, but as we start to move forward, we're gonna want to get some ideas on what we might continue to do next.
Yeah, like, so what I wanted to do, here's what I liked about the board game. It included ChatGPT stuff that we needed to do for large language models. It included 3D printing, and then it also included like Midjourney and AI image generation, but it also included like our own brains of creating and doing that.
And frankly, like, the best part is including everyone that has been with us for this journey.
Of course.
Like, getting your insights along the way, your quips.
Totally. Fun.
Super fun. We would not do this if it wasn't for you. So thank you for being with us. Honestly, that's what enlivens us to do this. Otherwise, we're just talking to a screen and we're not having a good time. And so,
or it's just Adam and I doing this with no screen sitting off to the side.
This is how we live our lives, really, to be honest. When we hang out, you're just getting to see how we actually hang out. So thank you so much for tonight. Have a good weekend, and we will see you next time on Adam and Ryan Hangout, right? The Hangout with Adam and Ryan.
Hangout with Adam and Ryan.
All right. We'll see you guys. Have a good night. See ya.
Good night.
Peace.